Hello everybody, welcome in to our latest live broadcast. And why am I in the corner really small like that? Probably because that's where I left it from the other day. I told you we'd be picking up on part 2 exactly where we left off. Doesn't get much more accurate than that. We're going to continue on from Friday's video where we're building with the ASUS B860M. This is the new 860 chipset from Intel. This is the mid-range chip for all the new Ultra CPUs. And we only have 3 Ultra CPUs right now, but there'll be more introduced throughout this year, beginning of this year. And the Z890 is the high-end board. That's what AMD and Intel do, is they come out with their high-end chips like the 9000 series. And then they come out with a specialty chipset on the high-end like the X870 for AMD, the Z890 for Intel. Then later on, after all the hype wears out and they've gouged everybody for every last cent who's anxious to pay top dollar for a brand new product who can't wait, then for the rest of us, they introduce the more realistically priced products that aren't so excessive or extreme with regards to the CPUs and the motherboards. So there'll be lower priced CPUs that will perform within single-digit percentage prices, but yet hundreds of dollars cheaper, or at least $100 cheaper, from one number to the next for both AMD and Intel. And then they introduced the more mid-ranged chipset boards. So for Intel, that's the B860, and for AMD, the 850. So Intel chips don't work on AMD chipsets, and vice versa. So we've got an early look at well, not an early look. They're already out. They're available to buy. Some motherboards are not released yet. We have a board from Gigabyte coming in like 2 weeks. So they're just fresh off the factory floor. So you can still get something that's leading edge, brand new, and not have to pay an excessive fee for it because it's not the enthusiast level. Enthusiasts, well, how can I put this? They have a lot more money than I do. I just can't afford to throw away that kind of money just for single-digit percentage differences. You know, I don't get it. There are people who actually do profit from being more productive with a faster system. But the majority of people buying this stuff, they just have a lot more money than I do. So I have a hard time making videos for the every person, which is what my goal is, because I don't think that represents the average computer owner. And the enthusiasts are also the ones who primarily partake in communication and in content creation on YouTube, because they're so enthusiastic. You know, that's the one place they can all go. So if you're not an enthusiast and you're watching computer tech videos, most of them you're watching are not for you. They're for other computer enthusiasts. So we're trying to keep it grounded here. So it's not that we're ignoring the high end. We've already done the high end stuff. But now it's time to get to those stuff for the rest of everybody else who's not in. Somebody who's a level of enthusiast, but with a but with a wallet that doesn't match their enthusiasm, right? Who wouldn't want these high-end systems if they were all the same price? But for the rest of us, you can get something that's so darn near close for almost half the price. Why would you spend that much more to get so little in return, other than because you can? Most of us can't. That's who these videos are for, the rest of us. Thank you for joining us. My name is CareyHolzman. Today it is the 2nd, is it the 2nd of February? I think it is. Sunday. I have to look at my phone. Problem of getting older. Where am I? What day is it? What year is this? Hello to everybody joining us in the chat room. Let's take a look who's in there today and say hello, and thank each and every one of you for spending your Sunday with me today. Steven says hello, along with Eddie Casanova and Ferris. Thomas Mac T says hello, joining from St. Petersburg, Florida. It's a good time of year to be in Florida. Badger says good evening from the UK. There's John Williams saying good afternoon. Our friend Luke Greenia in Vermont, north of Florida, says it's 90 degrees colder Fahrenheit between from southern Florida and straight up north to Vermont. That's a pretty extreme temperature difference. 73 degrees Fahrenheit in St. Petersburg, Florida. Negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit in Vermont. Whew! That is a big difference. Of course, Mara is in our chat room. There's our channel administrator here. Say hello to Mara. Marsman joins us from Coleman, Wisconsin. 38 degrees, and it was Groundhog Day with no shadow there. All right. Richard DeFry says hello from a chilly Ireland, where it is 6 degrees Celsius at present. Michael Lavelle says hello. There's Gary Bickle. And let's see, Scott, Jonathan, Doman 2000. There's our friend Buster joining us with a 10-pound super chat. Says hello, Carey and Maralina and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. The temperature in Edinburgh, 42 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 5.5 degrees Celsius. That's a lot warmer than Vermont. Holy moly. That weather doesn't sound too bad. 42 is a little brisk. But it's not negative 15. It's also not 73. Let's see. Darren Gilholm saying hello. Frank Jimmy says hello. John Paul Bacon's joining us. And Mark Gaines says hello from Northern Ireland. Kurt Schlegel says hello. Al Perez. Gil Garcia. Elmo Spines says hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. C. Chase saying hello. Mecca Cameron saying hello. Dave Leonard saying hello. Gene Calixte out of New York says hello. Is it Jean? Jean? Sergio says hello. Welcome in, Sergio. That name I can pronounce. I'm a tech, not a linguist, obviously. I don't mean to butcher any of your names. It's just the best I can imagine. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and I hope you're having a great Sunday. Today we're going to finish up what we started, which is essentially putting the power supply and the motherboard into this business briefcase looking case. You know, I was very happy with the results of this cooler with keeping the second fan off of it. If I could have bought this cooler without the second fan, I would have. But they being Scythe, the manufacturer, doesn't offer a version of this fan in black except with 2 fans. But just because it comes with 2 fans doesn't mean you have to use 2 fans. If you want to, don't let me get in your way. There are certainly other manufacturers, lots of other manufacturers of coolers that sell black coolers with single fans. I decided to just, you know, I'll buy the extra fan. If I need it, I'll put it on. But the extra fan only generally makes a difference of about 7 degrees maximum difference. So if, for example, this were an i7 or an i9 chip, that would run a lot hotter. And if running some resource-intensive task, which most of you don't do other than benchmarking it, but let's say you honestly were running this system very, very hard. Yeah, if an i7 or an Ultra 7 or an Ultra 9 were under there, probably want that extra 7 degrees of cooling. We could take us from 93 degrees tops to down to 85 or 84 when running something like Cinebench. I'd be putting it on. But we're not even getting close to 84 on Cinebench with 1 fan. And so adding the other fan doesn't benefit us other than mentally. Like there's an emotional thing that I've made it better, when in fact you added another point of failure and you've got no spare. So you can look at it however you choose to, and I'm not here to tell you how to look at it. I'm here to give you options to consider and for you to make the right decision for you. You know, you're also adding more noise and you're adding more dust. So more fans should be avoided as much as possible unless they're absolutely required. And that requirement could be emotional. It could be, well, I just like to have more fans. That's not logical. It's not something that we could scientifically prove that's always better for everyone. And so for that reason, it doesn't mean your answer is wrong, but it does mean that if you're using purchases based on an emotional reason, rather than a practical reason. We generally, in business, when you're doing work for clients, for other businesses don't care about the emotional side of things, other than profit is where their emotion is. Staying within budget is where their emotion is. Having a reliable, fast machine that isn't going to break down all the time and isn't going to expose their customers' data, that is an emotional state of mind that's also practical. Getting something that's flashy that will impress your neighbors or will impress yourself, nothing wrong with that. It's just not how my business, don't get me wrong. If my business ran based on that, I'd be here talking about it, but it doesn't. Customers generally do not call me wanting me to make things more glitzy. There's usually a reason and a practicality behind it. The most common request I get from customers is, how much is it, right? That's number one. And if the idea they're asking how much is it is because they're trying to stay within a budget, I'd rather see that customer save money on unnecessary items like RGB and extra fans that are completely emotional and not logical or practical. Take that same money and put it into more RAM or more storage, or even a beefier power supply if there's any future plans to potentially upgrade. That makes more sense to me. But at the end of the day, the customer decides, and then I build it. Most customers, and I mean most, 95% of my customers, they opt for, yeah, give me the more RAM. Forget that RGB stuff. Forget the liquid cooler stuff. Sometimes we have to put a liquid cooler in. 95% of my customers are businesses. Only 5% represent consumers. It used to be the other way around. It started off 95% consumers and 5% businesses, and the consumers have all sort of faded away. They've moved on to cellular phones and tablets. And consumers may only call you like once every 2 years for any work. You know, they wait for things to get unusable generally because they don't want to pay you, right? They don't want to have that expense. And the more complicated you make your system, the more you're going to be needing some maintenance on it. The higher end systems do require a lot more attention, just like a higher end car requires more frequent and more expensive maintenance. Nobody's buying a Ferrari for its reliability. On the other hand, you can get a respectably fast car for a fraction of the price, brand new, under warranty, that has a higher reliability, better gas mileage, and a more comfortable ride than what a Ferrari will cost you. So who buys Ferraris? Just look around. How often do you see one? A lot of the YouTube content regarding system builds, they're Ferraris, and they're for people that are Ferrari enthusiasts in that sense that they're extremists. When I say enthusiast, I mean extreme enthusiast. I mean, I like to think of myself as an enthusiast, so much so I've decided to do this for a living for 34 years, but not that kind of enthusiast. Like, I'm not that extreme. So that's just the way I see it from my perspective running a business. And so I want to share that practicality with you to consider how important it really is and how valuable a dollar is to you. Because for me, it matters. For you, it may not. So I'm not here to tell you. I'm just here to give you something to think about. And this is a very practical build. What we've got here essentially is a really fast modern computer under $1,000 that will easily last 10 years before it needs any repairs or upgrades. If you just put this in, you know, built it, and started using it, you would have absolutely no reason to have to replace anything for repair or even to upgrade for the next 10 years. If you're like most users. On the other hand, if you're an extremist and you're somebody that's constantly, you know, needing to upgrade more of everything, you can still do that with this system, but I wouldn't, you know, because this isn't designed for that. This is not designed for flash. This is not designed to be expensive and to be like limited availability, right? This should be available for you to buy on a regular basis. Not everybody's rushing out and buying them like the extremes of the 9800X3D. You know, good luck finding one of those in stock. And that's okay if you are. It's just not the line of work I'm in. I'm not, you know, customer says, get me a 9800X3D. what am I supposed to do? Wave a magic wand and have one appear? I can't spend all that time and labor searching for one. And then if I find it, it's probably $200-300 over market price. Then they're going to complain I'm too much money. So that's why it just doesn't relate in reality for running a business. We get what we can get that's affordable, available, reliable, and has a proven track record with regards to performance. It's not going to be a slouch in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to depreciate overnight. It's going to last for many, many reliable years, secure with regular maintenance. Doesn't need extreme maintenance, and it won't be complex to build. It won't take a lot of labor, and we don't have a lot of excess parts we don't need to have that could eventually be a point of failure for a service call. That includes RGB lights, that includes liquid coolers, that includes extra fans. Anything that we add to this could fail. The more we add, the more it can fail. 2 sticks of RAM instead of 4, because only 2 sticks of RAM can fail, versus 4 sticks of RAM, which doubles your chances of a failure. This is all the math that goes into trying to run a profitable business in this industry while keeping your customers happy, your prices low, and your support costs low, because support costs are what often put computer businesses out of business. Just so you know, customers expect support for free. That's the warranty, it's included. If you're spending more time on warranty because you've built an overly complex system unnecessarily, the customer is going to be pissed that you're having all these problems, or they're having all these problems, which are now your problems that you're expected to fix under warranty. And then you still have to pay your bills at the end of the month. How's that going to, see what I'm saying? You get it? But enthusiasts, like the extremists, they have all the money and all the time in the world to just mess about because they're just working for themselves. So if they screw themselves over, the only one who's paying for that is them. And the only one whose reputation is being ruined about how good of a job they do is just how they feel about themselves. Oh man, wouldn't it be great to be in that position? Well, I'm not, so I have to work for a living. In the meantime, just so you understand the difference, it's nothing down about them at all. If anything, it's jealousy. I would love to have no responsibility and do whatever I want. But I do have to earn a living, and if you're curious how that works, you generally don't see this on other channels. There's a few out there, but I'm trying to present to you something that is not as common on YouTube, which is how the world works around you besides outside of your bedroom or the room you're in, where you're watching other people in the room they're in doing some extreme things. Nothing wrong with it. I can't earn a living that way. All right, so just to clear up any confusion, the power supply we're using in today's build is this one right here, this EVGA 650. I went on to SCD keys last night and I ordered the Windows 10 Pro key. It was $15.72. And I simply activated the Windows 10 Pro key here on Windows 11 Pro. Activated just fine over the internet, and that is forever tied to this motherboard. You never have to do that again unless you change your motherboard out. And those keys are guaranteed for 6 months. After that, you're going to have to buy a new key. If you want a retail key, they're about $150 to $199 from Microsoft. And then you can move it from system to system, I think around 10 times. But for that price, you could buy 10 licenses at $15.72 and still have enough money to go out to dinner. So you decide. That the keys are all guaranteed to work. They're all 100% legal. They're legitimate. They absolutely can be used for business, including a lawyer's office or a government facility. All of that is 100% on the up and up. I'll just try to save you some money here. If you don't want to save the money and you'd rather give Microsoft your money, again, I'm not telling you not to, just giving you something to think about. Let me go ahead and start disconnecting this, but yeah, I did get this updated. And the update we were stuck on, it did finish. The sound card, seemed like it was stuck at 99%. It was working. I just ran out of patience. But I just let it run, and as we wrapped up the video, it did finish, just in case you were wondering. I don't know why that took so long, but it's once and done. You know what I mean? So it did have me a little concerned it was taking longer than I expected. But at the end of the day, it did finish. I don't know why it took so long, and it never has to be done again. Especially if we do like a backup image of this. Once the system's all built, we've got all the drivers and updates and activations put in, that's the best time to make a backup image, like with Acronis is what I use. And just be sure to if you ever have to wipe and reinstall, which, you know, this isn't Windows XP and Windows 95. You shouldn't really have to do that anymore. The people that still do that are just, in my opinion, lazy. They don't want to learn anything, and they just want to keep wiping and reinstalling rather than learning what went wrong. That's their choice. It's not my choice. I would rather restore an image. It'll take me 10 minutes, and I still would only do that if I just ran out of ideas on how to fix it. The idea to wipe it and reset it every single time you have a problem is a bit too basic for me. It's just too simple. And I think you're working way harder than you need to. Way too much time involved in that. Only under extreme circumstances will I do a wipe and a reinstall. When I tell you this is a 10-year build, you shouldn't have to reinstall ever in 10 years. Now, if you get a virus or ransomware, you just want to be sure it's wiped out. That would be an exception. And there are some exceptions. But overall, 99% of the systems I build will never need an operating system wipe and reinstall. Ever. Ever, ever. You go from Windows 7 to Windows 8 to Windows 10 to Windows 11. You still don't have to reinstall. But if you should want to, it's so much easier to restore a system backup image, bringing it back to the point it was in after you did all the drivers and software and updates, than to just start all over again, waiting for all of that. But again, it's your choice. All right, let me move this stuff over and let's take a look. We have an I/O shield already built on this board, and I just want to dry fit this and see if it's going to fit in there okay. And the other thing I need to do is I need to wire tie our fan cable, which again, if we had another cable, if we had another fan, we'd have another cable to cable manage, we'd have another point of failure, we'd add more noise, we'd add more dust, and we would not be improving system performance. Even if the system ran a couple degrees cooler, that would not benefit us in any way other than in a placebo mental state that we're suddenly happier. That's a human condition, not a computer condition. I'm not a doctor, I'm a tech. So I can't help you with that condition. If you want to spend the money because you have that condition, I can't help you. You know, I'm not telling you not to do it, but I want you to understand the reasoning behind what I'm doing and why I'm not doing that. Let me grab, oh, you know what? There's some zip ties in here, isn't there? There we go. Larry Wood became a supporter. Hey, right on. Thanks, Larry. Al Press says, this live chat is therapy for me. There's a new angel in heaven. My senorita Bonita. Oh, is my, I'm sorry to hear about your mom. I'm just looking in the chat room to see what I'm missing. Bob Claiborne with a $5 super chat. Right on. Thank you, Bob. Says hello to everyone. Welcome in. Thomas wants to know if I can use Carey's Amazon link to buy items not on my list. Yes. So Thomas, the way the Amazon link works is if you use one of our links in our video notes, in the video description below, and that takes you to an Amazon page, but you don't want to buy that item. You want to buy something else, as long as you don't close the browser, because our link took you to Amazon, any purchase you make in any category, we make a small commission from, but it's anonymous. We won't know it was you who did it unless you tell us. It's a great way to support the channel because it's not costing you any more. Nothing's changing from the buyer's perspective. It's just that we're getting, you think about like a taxi driver. You're in Vegas, you hear there's a club that's really hopping, you call for a taxi, you get in the back, taxi says, where are you going? Oh, I heard about this club. Taxi driver says, you don't want to go to that club. I got a better club for you to go to. Well, when the taxi driver takes you to the better club, the reason it's better is the taxi drivers get paid a commission. But if you're going to shop at Amazon anyway, right? Instead of just going to Amazon.com, use any link that we provide in any video to take you to Amazon and then purchase as you normally would. And then, yeah, we get a very tiny commission, but they do add up. And so thank you for asking. There's our friend Charlie Purdy with a $20 super chat. Says, happy Groundhog Day. Right on, back at ya. Is there 2 more weeks of winter? What's Puxatani Phil say? Didn't Puxatani Phil just become a father? So much Gopher Dog. Ken wants to know, can you explain the problem surrounding the Intel 13th and 14th generation error? Yes, we have lots of videos, Ken, here on the channel. We've gone over that at least a half dozen times. The too long didn't read is that you just get the latest BIOS update and it's resolved. It's that simple. Intel has extended the warranty on those chips to a full 5 years worldwide. So you have no reason to have any concern or anxiety. If your chip was affected by damage earlier before the BIOS update applied, you have a full 5-year warranty for a cost-free replacement. On the other hand, if it's something you have anxiety for, just make sure you have the latest BIOS update and the problem is now fixed and you can get on with life. That's it. That's the TLDR on that one. So again, I appreciate your questions. Thank you for asking. And if you want to learn more about the details, be sure and check out some of our other videos specifically dedicated to this topic in much more granular detail. But it won't change any of the facts. It just might explain it a little better. But that's all been fixed. That's all history now. I need my wire cutters, my needle nose. Let's clean this up. Can you hear me okay? I'm gonna do that. All right. When I'm working on a black cable with a black zip tie against a black motherboard, you know what I need, right? My glasses. That's where my eyes start struggling. When I was younger, I didn't have this problem. And it's definitely getting worse, or the room is getting darker. I don't know. But, you know, trying to find the little opening for the zip tie to go into on a black cable, on a black motherboard, on a black zip tie. I think that's a reasonable challenge. I'm not going to beat myself too much, beat myself up too much over it, but I'm still so not used to it, you know. I start to do it and then I wonder why I can't see it. I'm like, oh yeah, I need glasses now. Sad reality of aging, I suppose. Or the sad reality of not aging, either way. All right, make sure those are good and tight. And we'll cut those pigtails off. Good enough. And these are screws for the power supply. Let's get the power supply out of the way for a moment so I can lay this case down. And let me close this little container up because, you know, might knock it off the table. And actually, all screws are in bags. That wouldn't That wouldn't be terrible. All right, so I'm going to turn this on its side. And what do we have here? Oh. So if you remember when I opened this up, there was a lot of like loud banging around of stuff rattling that came loose. I can see now that there is a zip tie in here. I just noticed right up here. And that was obviously what was being used to hold in place whatever broke free. So that's not a good enough way to secure stuff, because that's just a zip tie holding in nothing. And that's how we got it. So normally, I imagine this piece here is probably secured with these wire ties, but that's clearly not working. At least it didn't work for me. Sometimes these little wire ties are good to hold on to if you ever need to wrap up some cables and stuff. So sure, we'll hold on to them. But that, you don't want that back behind your motherboard. That has to be removed. We need the motherboard tray unobscured. It's got to be completely by itself, or you can create a ground out short and wonder why your brand new $1,000 build isn't working. All right, so with the I/O shield facing out, let's see if we have all the standoffs pre-installed in the right place. Let's see. I'm going to count how many standoffs I've got on this board. 1, 2 across the bottom. 1, 2 across the middle. 1, 2, 3 across the top. So that's 7. Now let me see how many are underneath this motherboard. Fits in there nice. I hate to take it out, but I need to check. If you leave a standoff where there's no mounting hole in the board, it creates potentially a grounding point and a short circuit. And again, you're going to wonder why your brand new build isn't working. It does not want to come out. Like, it is locked in without any screws. That's impressive. Normally, if I wasn't taking it out, I'd like that. What is it locked into? I am puzzled. There it goes. All right, let me count my standoffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I said I had 7, right? Okay, there's one in the middle I don't see. I cannot see this screw right here. It's underneath the release mechanism. That's unusual. I've never seen that design before. That's the standoff that has the post that is holding this motherboard in for us. We don't have to put a screw in it, and I'm not even sure we could if we wanted to. So let me take another look, because this is a first time experience for me, having this quick release GPU, this quick GPU release. It appears that GPU release is not intended to be removed. And here's what you've got to consider. Okay, so there's the OCD in me that says I've got a mounting hole that doesn't have a screw in it. On the other hand, you really only need technically 2 screws to hold this motherboard in, one in each corner, bottom right, upper left, or upper right, bottom left. And technically you're going to be fine. By putting in 7 screws, we're putting in 5 more than we really need, but it does help if you're going to hang a heavy GPU on the side to keep the board from warping. But even then, it's probably more of a formality than a requirement. So my attitude is, look, if Dell or HP are going to put all these unnecessary screws in, and they're the ones that'll be the first to cut out anything that isn't absolutely necessary, I definitely want to make sure I use all the mounting holes rather than evaluate whether I really need to or not. It's not like it takes that much more effort, and they do include everything we need. But then you run into a situation from time to time where one particular mounting hole is not accessible for one reason or another. Is it that important? It's nice to have something behind the mounting hole. Like in this case, we have standoffs. We don't want standoffs behind the board if there is no mounting hole. But if the standoff is behind a mounting hole, but in this case the mounting hole is being covered up, the question is, do you want to dismantle the board to get to that? And a reason why you might not want to is because if you ever have to take the board out for any reason, a 2-minute board removal may become a 20-minute board removal, inviting you to potentially break whatever component you're removing, which would not be normal under most motherboard circumstances. They don't normally cover the mounting screws up like that. I've seen, we had an ASUS board. Oh, and this is also an ASUS board. We had an ASUS Threadripper board where we had to remove a component in order to get to the mounting screw. And that Threadripper board was massive and heavy, and I wanted every screw in there. But that meant when I had to take the board out, and I did because of a wiring issue that I had to take the board out, a wire management issue, I was really cursing at myself having to do this extra work, because ordinarily taking a board out is zoom, 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 it's out. So I'm going to leave that because you would never know it was there. It won't make any difference if we put it in, except that it will make removal much harder if we forget it's there and we can't figure out why the board's not coming out, right? And then we end up breaking something, or somebody else tries to take the motherboard out. They don't know there's a screw under there, and they end up cracking the motherboard trying to get it out, right? You saw me struggle with it without a screw in it. Imagine if I didn't know the screw was there and I struggled like that. It's not going to end well. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to make an exception to filling every mounting hole, and we're going to leave that one blank. Out of sight, out of mind. And again, it won't make any technical difference, but that's a first. That's the first time in all the years I've been building I've ever seen that before. But that's the price you're paying for that GPU quick release lever. Now, if there's an easy way to remove that GPU release lever to get to that screw, I don't know what it is, and probably most other techs and owners of this computer, or computer owners, not this one, would not know to do that, which invites damage. So for all of those reasons, all of that justification, I'm leaving it out, and I think you should too. But again, I just provide you the information. What you choose to do with it is not for me to say. Now we've got a bunch of little baggies filled with different types of screws. These screws should be the motherboard screws. They're a short, coarse threaded screw. And if I give you a close-up, I don't guarantee that these are the right screws, but I'm going to take a guess based on all the other boards. Oh, it actually says on the bag, it says motherboard screws. All right, well, you know what? Now I don't have to guess. And that is really nice when manufacturers do that. You know who doesn't do this? Manufacturers of cheap cases. And when I say cheap, I don't mean inexpensive. I mean just cheap, poor quality materials, and less care to the end user buying it. I've never worked with MONTECH cases before. Somebody told me in chat the other day that MONTECH was Phanteks. I see no evidence of that. If you guys have a link, as far as I can tell, they're two very different companies. But they do things in very similar ways. I think MONTECH or MONTECH. I think they are inspired, let's use the word inspired by Phanteks. But I didn't find anything online that says they're related. So, you know, if I'm wrong, let me know, because I'm very interested if this is a competitor or if this is in fact Phanteks. They are very similar in a lot of ways, but MONTECH is cheaper. Moonwolf Hunter with a £2 super chat said, I built my first PC with an all-in-one and nothing exploded. Well, you know what? If you can get an all-in-one to explode, I'd hope you get it on camera. But congrats. Do you like your new PC? And what did you build? Tell us about it. And also, was there anything about your build that was easier or harder than you thought it would be? So if you could go back in time to give your own self advice about, hey, don't have so much anxiety, or hey, this is going to be a little more difficult on this part of it, what would that advice be? Because that's essentially what I'm doing over here. I'm encountering situations I've never encountered before. I'm gauging their priority, and investment. And, you know, with some builds, I struggle a little bit more with unfamiliar hardware. And with other builds, the unfamiliar hardware is really super easy to work on. Like this one, for example. And in this case, it's the motherboard that's my my challenge with that hole covered up, which is so weird. Now, normally I wouldn't recommend you put your screws in with an electric driver. Taking screws out with an electric driver is fine. However, this is a pretty fancy electric driver, and I'm very familiar with it, so I can feel when I cross-thread a screw. With a lot of electric drivers, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with it, or if it's too much torque, you can cross-thread, not even realize it, and damage the screw or damage the standoff, and just ruin your build, all because you didn't want to turn your wrist. So if you're inexperienced with your driver or computer building, play it safe and turn a screwdriver. Do not use an electric one. And if you are going to use an electric one, understand the risk you're taking. And I dropped a screw over here. Right over here. Let me grab it before I forget. One of those motherboard screws that needs to go back in the box. Where did it go? There it is. I just figured I better pick it up now, or I'll forget, and then I'll take the rest of these motherboard screws and I'll just put them right in this part here. And those are for different motherboards of different widths. This is still a micro ATX case. There are some motherboards longer than others, but you can see how beautiful that's going to fit in black on black with the black cooler, the black RAM, the black motherboard, the black zip ties, and then of course the side panel with black and leather with a little window. I think it's going to look very elegant, classy. We need to put a power supply in that's going to hang vertically versus going in flat in the back towards the bottom. This case is a little different that way. So we got to get this bracket off. Now, you know, I don't like to look at the documentation. I like to figure things out because in real life, that's what keeps me sharp. When I go to a client's, the client doesn't have a manual for you to read. The client is probably wanting you to do the job quickly so that they're not paying you so much in labor. And the client doesn't want to pay you to read a book. You're supposed to already know this. So as an exercise for myself that I enjoy, I like to try to avoid using any manuals, and this keeps me sharp for future field service work that I'm basically emulating here on camera in real time. And a good case design, or just a good design in general, should not require instructions to an experienced tech. It should be intuitive. If I have to read the manual, with over 34 years in this industry, it's not an indication that I'm dumb. It's an indication of a bad design. That's the way I see it. Find Me in Hawaii is now a member for 32 months. Right on, Ken. Thank you so much for being a member here so long. We appreciate you, my friend. Let's see if I can figure out, how do I get that bracket? Normally the front would come off. Does the front come off on this? I don't know. Let's take a look and see. None of what I'm doing is rocket science. A lot of this is just critical thinking and common sense. And I see clips. Wow, it's a little old school with those clips. The clips aren't terrible. Sometimes there's screws, sometimes there's clips. When you deal with plastic clips, though, Calypso? When you deal with them, as they age, plastic can get brittle. And as plastic gets brittle, it may not be as flexible and can break. So this isn't something you'd want to keep removing over and over. And normally a regular user would never take this off during the entire lifetime of the computer. So it's likely never going to be a problem. But for the enthusiasts who can't leave things alone, this is what can cause damage. That's why I explain to people you shouldn't be doing unnecessary work just because you're bored. Because something as simple as taking off the cover, if it's held in with plastic clips and those clips have dried out and become brittle, results in breaking the plastic cover, and basically you have to buy a new one. Even though you didn't technically do anything wrong, you broke it. And then the reason you broke it was for no good reason. Like it wasn't required. You just decided to mess with it one day. And if you don't mind those consequences, then don't let me stop you. But if you do mind those consequences, don't do that unless there's a good reason to take that potential risk on. So there are 4 clips, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that pops the lid off where all of our I/O umbilicals are. So I can just take this whole lid right off. See that? No instructions needed. Common sense, reverse engineering. And it's a common design. Whether or not they follow the same number of clips or position of clips, they've been building cases like this for decades. Now on the front, you'll see, and again, it's very obvious. You should not need, if you're a first-time builder, please read the directions. But I'll tell you what I see here. I see this hole. There's one on each side, and then 2 screws. Now, if you've seen us build other cases where the power supplies go in the front, like the Johnsbow cases, for example, this is the exact same. So I've already seen this before, or an iteration of it. We have 3 screw holes here, 1, 2, and 3, and that's to address the height of the power supply if you need room for cable clearance. This power supply is really short. I mentioned that on the first video. One of the things I really like about the power supply is if you look at the depth of it, it's really, really short. And then the question you ask yourself is, well, should the fan's drawing air in, should that face the front or should that face the inside? Obviously, the hot air is going to be inside, right? If you've got a graphics card or even just a CPU, the power supply sucks air in from the fan and it blows air out the back where the cable is. So you're going to be either sucking in hot air and then blowing it back into the case, right? Because this power supply is venting out the top here. You cannot put the power supply in with the cables up and the vent down. That won't work because there's only screw holes here. So the only question is, do you want to put it in where you're bringing in cold air from the outside, or do you want to put it in where you're bringing in hot air from the inside? Because either way, you're exhausting the hot air from the power supply inside the case. But it's close to the top of the case, so the air will hopefully vent straight up. Otherwise, it's going to get pulled through from front to back in our fan configuration, which is a standard fan configuration. Likely that won't make a difference one way or the other, but for me personally, I want to follow logic, and I want the fan to bring in cold air from outside. And that means the exhaust air won't be as hot. So to put the power supply in, I got to take that bracket out. And that looks like just 2 screws, and you just slide it up. Let's try and see if I'm right. One, 2. All right, so we have 3 different positions, as I mentioned, 3 different heights that we can put the power supply on. If I lift this up, this is our power supply bracket. So power supply is going to be attached underneath this, and then we can put this in up here, in the middle, or down below, depending on if you need this space available. Like if you put a liquid cooler in here, you might need the space up above for the radiator. If you have a power supply that's really long, you probably need to bring this up higher. For this build, it doesn't really matter. And if we had decided to put a liquid cooler in this later on, we just take those 2 screws, leaving the power supply attached, loosen it, lower it to the lowest position or wherever you want to lower it, put the 2 screws back in. So it's not like you're making a commitment forever. For me personally, I'd like to bring this up as high as I can get it. So if I know this is the back, right, this is the part that's going to be in the back, and the top of the fan, trying to figure out what's going on. I'm hitting the button on my driver. Give me a second here. Shallow drawer. So just imagine it in your head, right? If we're putting the power supply in this way, you'll see that frame hugs the power supply. And then different power supplies will vary in how long they are. Right? And that brings our fan, again, this fan's going to suck air in towards the front, which is where I want it. So that is precisely how I want to mount this power supply. Now I can use the screws that came with the case to mount the power supply, or I can use the screws that came with the power supply. They're the same screws in most situations. Since these screws that came with the power supply are black, and the screws that came with the case are black, they're exactly the same screw. So I'm just going to go with the ones I've already got out. Now, I don't normally leave the screwdriver, well, let me rephrase. The screwdriver has a pretty low torque setting, and that's so I don't over tighten anything. But if there's any screws I want to be tight, it's definitely going to be the power supply screws, because of the weight of the power supply is being held by 4 of these little teeny tiny screws. And the bigger and heavier the power supply is, you can imagine how much stress is put on these screws. And then, of course, as you move the computer around, the likelihood of that coming loose, well, you don't want that to happen, because if your power supply breaks loose, especially in shipping, it'll bounce around up and down, left and right as they throw the box around, and it'll just completely destroy the inside of the computer. Oddly enough, the power supply, apart from being scratched up, will probably be fine. But it'll slam into the RAM and just break it right out of the sockets. I've seen it rip heat sinks off and rip drives out of their hard drives and SSDs. So for these screws, I will usually grab just a regular manual screwdriver and just tighten them down a bit. And again, you can see I'm not exerting a lot of effort here, but I am turning them a good quarter of a turn. They're not going anywhere now. Then I can just slide this right back in. I'm going to go to the top, but as you can see, I don't have to. I can drop it a little lower. It's just my own personal preference. And I can always change my mind with 2 screws, and I don't have to undo any wiring. So there I just slipped it into the second position, which is not what I meant to do. It is difficult to face this towards you and for me to work backwards, but not impossible. So that puts our power supply in, and then we just simply secure it back with the 2 same screws we removed. As you can see, having a big workspace is going to be helpful so that you're not knocking things around or knocking things off the table. So plan accordingly. So this one screw right back where it was, and this screw back where it was. And again, the whole weight of the power supply primarily is on the hooks up here, right, with gravity. But again, because it is a heavy power supply with the relatively short screws, I will just check them by hand and give them just a little tiny bit of encouragement to be a little tighter. And then, let's see. We can put our front panel back on. So there's our front port umbilicals. We'll feed those back in first. If you had this already wired up, you'd have to disconnect all the wires to completely remove the panel. Otherwise, you'd have to have the panel dangling. And again, that sort of needs, that's going to need more work area then to have room for this, especially if you're moving the case around. Then this thing's loose and hitting stuff on the table. It invites more damage to not only things on the table, but to the panel itself. So it may be worth an extra 2 minutes just to unplug everything and get it completely removed. You know, this is your judgment, but something for you to consider. That just lines up and pushes on. 2, 3, 4. Now, cabling a computer is often what gets people intimidated, and this is going to happen really quick. It's really simple. We have a USB 3 Type A header, a USB Type C header, power switch, reset switch, power LED, hard drive LED, audio header, and motherboard power and CPU power. It's nothing. I mean, it's just a handful of cables. Then we can worry about cable management and making it look pretty. But for now, we just want to make sure everything works. Now you have a choice on how you want to route your cables. It doesn't really make sense for us to route the cables in the back just to come around to the front again. So I'm just going to go right out of the power supply directly to the motherboard power header here. And how you twist your cable is definitely going to make a difference in how difficult it is to manage it later on. So it's pretty normal for me to sometimes have to, most times, have to unplug and reroute cables when it comes to cable management time. But if I hook all this up and it doesn't work, cable management's the furthest thing I need to worry about. So we're going to hook everything up, make sure everything works. Now this cable, this has to go all the way around to the back. So for that reason, I will route this right down under here. Again, twist the cable as need be to get it straight because it won't fight with you so much. And that cable is just, whew, that is a little short. I may have not much choice here but to go, let's see if this makes any difference. We go up this way. So that's going to vary depending on your power supply choice, how long the cables are. As I recall, this was on the connector. We have 2 of these 8-pin connectors. We only need to use 1 because we're not overclocking. This is a reasonable build, not an extremist build. So I'm going to set that down and work with gravity. Black cable and a black plug on a black motherboard in a black case. Got my glasses on. But I also think I'm going to need a flashlight. This case is not as difficult as that 200R with regards to hooking this cable up. I can actually get my hand in there. But it is dark and it is hard to see. So let me just grab a torch and see what we got. It's amazing how much easier it is when you can see. You know, I can do it without seeing, but it's a lot easier if I could see. It's a really awkward way to do this. This would have been easier to do if I had left the heatsink off. So the heatsink, what's usually the case are these Mugen 5s, or the Mugen 6. These heat sinks are so big, they get really close to that 12-volt CPU power connector. It's not necessarily the case's fault, although some cases are a little taller and give us a little room. By changing the order of the build, by putting the motherboard in and saving the heatsink until after that CPU power connector goes on, would make this job a lot easier, but I also would not have been able to test it out of the case. And that's not ideal if you're making educational YouTube videos and you're not showing anybody on video. Like, I can't really show you me putting this connector on, but I have enough videos already. It's the same connector that we've been using for over, what has it been, a decade or two? Going in the same place in the same way. So I don't feel too bad about not being able to get you that camera angle, but as much of it as possible, I do want to show you. As much of it that's reasonable. And yeah, this is a little bit of a challenge for me here to think about my approach. There it goes. Some power supplies will connect those two 4-pin connectors together. This one doesn't, so each 4-pin connector is independent. That gets it a little tricky to kind of hold them together, and they have to go on together, or you end up getting one, and then because the cable's cut, the wire wrapping on the cable is cut so short, you don't have enough surplus or slack to bend the other cable back to sit it. You more or less have to sit them both at the same time. And when they connect together, sometimes there's a little plastic tab on the sides that connects them together. That makes that install so much easier. The good news is you just do it once, you know. And if I would have, even if I had put this heatsink on, it is just unbuckling the fan and taking out 2 screws to get the heatsink off. If your hands are so big, or you just feel like that would be easier, it's not really that much work to take this heatsink off. I probably could have taken the heatsink off, put this connector on, and then put the heatsink back on. You would not have to reapply your thermal compound as long as you don't touch it on the bottom of the heatsink or the top of the CPU, and then put the fan buckles back on. It probably would have taken the exact same amount of time. What I'm realizing looking down on this heatsink is my fan is off to the right, and you can see it didn't make any difference in our cooling, but it's bugging my OCD, so I'm just gonna... The previous Scythe coolers had a little ridge for the fans to sit in. This doesn't have that apparently, so the fan slides a good 6 to 8 millimeters to the right or to the left, so I just want it in the middle, just to please my OCD, but it makes no difference on the cooling. That's purely an aesthetics thing. That's it for the power supply. We don't need any of these other cables, but we could use them for future upgrades, adding drives, adding a GPU, right? That's what they're there for. And then because this isn't modular, we don't have to worry about losing them. We'll just wire tie them all up and get them out of the way, and then that just leaves us with our front port umbilicals, which, as I mentioned, power switch, reset switch, power LED, hard drive LED, front port USB, and front port audio. Super easy. This says HD audio. The audio connector is usually in the bottom left corner of most motherboards. And if I glance down here, without even so much as looking at a manual, I see the front port audio connector, and there's no clip on it. It's a friction fit that only goes on one way because there's a pin missing. And if you try to put it on upside down, it won't go in because the area that has a pin missing is blocked. So the other side upside down has a pin that's being blocked from seating. That's how it ensures in a very simplistic way that you can't put it on the wrong connector and you cannot put it on upside down. But there's also no clip to secure it. So you just make sure that it bottoms out against the motherboard and you're good to go. Now when it comes to the front port, the switch, reset switch, power switch, hard drive LED, power LED, MONTECH has given us all those connectors in one. I love when manufacturers like NZXT make this routine, because all motherboards, unless it's mini ITX, actually even if it's mini ITX, they still go on the same order. It's just on a mini ITX board, this header is closer to the power connector, but on micro ATX and regular ATX boards and eATX boards, the connector is on the bottom right, right? So the audio header is on the bottom left, front port panels, bottom right. This connector says F panel, and on the motherboard, etched next to the header, it says F panel. A pin is missing. Why is the pin missing? That ensures it only goes on in the proper orientation. You cannot put it on backwards or upside down. It won't go on. Front panel. Missing pin appears to be on top, so we'll rotate that for the missing pin to be on top. And it just sits down over all the pins until it bottoms out against the board. It is a friction fit. There's no clip or anything. The next cable, what do we have? This is a USB Type-C 3.1. You only get one of these. It's pretty rare to find a motherboard that's giving you two. It's pretty rare to find a case. This one cable is required to power one Type-C. That's how powerful USB Type-C is. whereas all the other cables power 2 USB ports. So don't expect to have to. That's pretty unusual in 2025. It's possible, but for a board to offer you to and a case to offer you to, you better be very specific about what you're ordering, because that's not normal. That's more of a higher end option. But hey, nothing money can't fix. You know, if you bought a case, an unusual case that gave you 2 USB Type-Cs and your motherboard only has 1, you can always buy an add-in card. This is another, these are all, by the way, friction fit. There's only one place where it'll fit. And it only goes in one direction, and that can be a little difficult to tell sometimes, but basically don't force it. If it's not going in, just like regular USB, if it's not going in, flip it around the other way. Don't force it. Finally, the last umbilical we have is the USB Type-C. That's typically next to the big motherboard power connector on most motherboards. It has a little notch in it that prevents you from installing it backwards. And again, it's got these little plastic ridges that are supposed to lock into a connector. Some motherboards have it, some don't. So it'll be a tight fit. Sometimes they click, sometimes they don't. But regardless, the little notches that click in are on the opposite side. What we're looking for is the notch that's centered, that lines with the notch in the header. That's how you know which direction it goes on. Just line that up, push it straight down, and you may hear a click, and you may not. Don't force it so hard that you crack your motherboard, okay? It may not sit completely end to end. So when you push that down and you do not hear a click, just look and see how far seated it is, because that may be as far as it goes. You can also give a light pull on that cable, see if it easily pops out. Obviously, if you pull on it hard, it's supposed to pop out. And you shouldn't be pulling cables out by the wires. You should always, any cable, whether it's a power cable that you've got plugged into the wall, a wall outlet, like a wall wart, any type of cable, you always want to grab it by the connector, not by the cable. What ends up happening is you can pull the cables right out of the connector, and then that's a much more complicated and expensive and time-consuming repair. But that's it. The whole system's done. That's all we had to do. Now, if we want to clean this up a little bit just for the camera, one of the things I could do is grab one of these spare zip ties. Only because I got it laying around. And that'll help clean up any sort of worry of cables dragging across the desk and knocking things over as we move things around. This is a great use for these. Just take one of our wire ties here. I'm not doing this for anything other than to be quick and dirty, just to kind of keep it out of our way for now. And I do each cable individually so they don't get all tangled up later. This is not meant to be permanent. So if we're just trying to get an idea of where we're at, just as an idea, conceptually, what's this going to look like when it's done? This is the time to figure out any adjustments that need to be made by simply sliding the panel back on and just taking a look at it. Okay, from this angle, it looks done. If we see a mess of cables in there, we know where we need to route those cables to get them out of the view of the window if that's important to you. Without any lighting in here, nothing's really going to reflect off the cables. So unless somebody really looks in there, right, I can see a bunch of cables over here. You are going to see cables in this build with the power supply hanging here. If we lower the power supply down, this is the part of the window that goes down. If the part of the window that went up was over here, we could hide the cables by lowering the power supply. Because the cable sleeving is black, this may be a consideration when ordering your power supply not to get a white one, because that may really stand out through the glass. The glass is smoked, it's not clear, so someone would really have to be looking for them, I think, to see the cables. And of course, we've got the carrying handle we can attach, which I think probably this unscrews somehow, and then this will latch on. And you can put that on if you want to. I'm not quite sure I want to, and I'm not quite sure how this comes off. There may be a screw on the ends. Oh, maybe not. It looks like that unscrews. This would be a final thing. We wouldn't do that right now anyway. But if you want to just conceptualize what it's going to look like when it's done. None of this is rocket science and doesn't require a manual to read, for me anyway. But that is more or less what it'll look like when it's done. Let's fire it up, make sure we haven't broken anything, okay? So let me grab power cable. Something I didn't do. The power cable goes in the back, and you're saying, well, but the power supply is up front. They've installed an extension cable, just like Johnsbo did, that runs along, and then we have to plug it into the power supply. So easy enough, I just take this side panel back off here for a second, a little premature in putting that back on. And they're going to have this wire tied. There's a little clip that's nice. There's a plastic clip that holds that. And we'll take this wire tie off because we don't want this running, we don't want this power cable all the way down here. We need it up towards the top. So we have to reroute that. But it's designed to not bang around in shipping and cause any damage to the glass or internals. So by simply rerouting this all the way over to here and make sure the power supply switch is in the on position, which is opposite of what I normally recommend. And unfortunately, the side of the cable, it would be great if it went in this direction. Oh, well, you can see that. Unfortunately, in Murphy's Law, we have to turn the cable back towards itself. You know, not the end of the world, but if you want to be that particular when you're shopping for parts, note the orientation. You want the power cable, you want the ground of the power cable facing the top of the power supply. Normally they face the fan, but they do make them the other way if that's important to you. I don't think you're really going to notice it one way or another, but we lose the ability to switch the power supply on and off with a switch. So if we ever have to cut power to this, you can hold the power button in for 10 seconds, 10 or 11 seconds, or you could simply pull the power cable out of the back, or you could pull the power cable out of the wall, or you could plug it into a surge protector that has an on-off switch and shut off the surge protector. So there's lots of alternatives to that. Now, let me put this back and let's fire it up and see if it works. Okay, so where was I? Grabbing a power cable. Power cable is going to go up here. Then I need my keyboard and mouse. What do I do with my keyboard and mouse? Did I leave it plugged in from last time? No. What do I do with it? I'm confused. Let me keep moving. I need an HDMI cable. So go into our capture card here. We're using our built-in video into the Ultra 5 CPU. I need an Ethernet cable. That'll get us internet access. This does have Wi-Fi too, though, so I can do it either way. And where's my keyboard dongle? What did I do with it? You know what? That is not like me. I have lost my dongle. Have you lost your dongle, Carey? It's a personal question. That makes no sense. Because I can understand if I forgot it and I left it plugged in, but it's not back here. And I can understand if the I/O shield, maybe putting the I/O shield on or off, I knocked it out and didn't realize it. The I/O shield's permanently attached to the board, so that wouldn't have happened. So my guess is I've set it down and I don't know where I put it. But I have a backup keyboard and mouse for just such an occasion. I'm just going to move this over here. And you know, immediately after the show, I'm going to step on it. Oh, there it is. Right. Like stepping on Legos.
Take your shoes off.
That's what I'm saying. I'll walk around barefoot. I'll find it immediately. So we'll use this fancy. It's not fancy. This is a $25 keyboard. First one I got, the charging port didn't work.
Check your email when you get a chance.
And you want me to check my email? Well, let me make sure this works first. And thank you for the reminder. All right, dongle. You know what? Let's plug the dongle in up front, and that way we test the front USB ports at the same time. Power. And we'll come over here. Camera 2 is what I call it. And let's see what this looks like. Hopefully we get a power on self-test. I feel air coming out of the top here, so I know it's running. And within a moment or two, we should see the gig. Oh, I didn't even see a logo. It just went right to the. That thing is fast. Holy cow. All right, now that we're in here, let me grab my utilities flash drive. And let's copy over Cinebench. And let's see how well the single fan cools. Because if I'm wrong, I'll put the second fan on it. But I'm pretty sure that second fan is not only unnecessary, it's going to be more work than we need to do. And for no good reason. It's only a downside to adding that extra fan. So let's go to PC testing. Let's grab Cinebench. We'll also grab Crystal Disk Mark. Because we put that ORICO drive in here, which is a Gen 4 drive. And we should be seeing a little over 7,000 megabytes per second out of it. Let's make sure that's what we're getting. It's booting up fast enough. I have no reason to suspect it's anything but that. But let's check that right quick. First, the disk mark. By the way, you can download all these benchmarks for free. You'll notice I download the portable versions. I do not install them. I don't want to jeopardize the integrity of a clean operating system for a customer with silly benchmarks. I want to see over 7,000 or really damn close. Okay, we're good. And then on the right side, we'll see where we're at. But while that runs, let me jump back over to camera 1, and I'll put myself in a corner. I grab the right screen first, Carey. Move myself over there. Guess I need to move this other one a little more to the left. Everybody wants to be in the middle. Go over here. There we go. All right, let's see. Phone. Phone. Check the phone. That dongle's gonna bother me. Oh, I found it. I must have knocked it onto the floor. Let me put this back where it belongs. It goes underneath the mouse magnetically, so that won't happen again. live show. What are you going to do? That's why we have backups. Just talking about backups again. Hey, our friend Buster sends us a Amazon gift card and a photo. Hey, Carey and Marlena, just another gift from your friend Buster. Oh, that's very kind of Buster. As always, we thank you so much, and we'll share that photo with everybody. This, if you want to put a face to a name, that's our friend Buster that you see there in the chat room. And boy, so much content we would not be able to make without the support of Buster, and not just Buster, but all of you. But Buster has been regularly supportive and generous to a point that he is responsible for at least, gosh, 30% of this content. Imagine a third of the videos just not existing, because that's the reality of it. And we can't thank Buster enough for that kind of support. It is unusual, and our gratitude is beyond words. And for each and every one of you that are members, or you have contributed in some way to help us remain independent from all the big corporations, we wouldn't be here without each and every one of you. And we are trying to be videos that don't have a corporate bias other than my own personal business. And then I explain why. And to do that means you guys need to be our sponsors. If we can't get the sponsorship we need, we just make fewer videos, or the content of the videos is such that it fits within whatever budget we have that can allow for. But rest assured, all the money contributed, whether it's memberships, super chats, PayPal contributions, or Amazon gift cards, is funneled right back into the channel again. My problem right now is we have a number of systems here that we could sell and then use that money again to reinvest. But the cost of shipping them, there's plenty of you who want to buy them, but unfortunately, you're not in Arizona. So if you are in Arizona, coming through Arizona, that sort of thing, and you're interested in any of our builds, including this one, reach out to me. But shipping them just doesn't make any sense. It would be much better for you to just order the parts and build it yourself, because Amazon has free shipping and you have 30-day returns, than what it costs us to ship these days. And the likelihood of damage is higher than I've ever seen it. So highest prices we've seen, highest amount of damage per shipment that we've ever seen, and it just doesn't make sense to ship these towers anymore. For those reasons, you know, we're not making these videos to sell computers. We're making the videos to teach you how to build it yourself, to be self-reliant. At the same time, for whatever reason, if you were in the Phoenix area and you wanted to buy one, we'd be happy to sell it and be able to reinvest that money back into the channel. All right, I just haven't cracked that nut yet. I'm not sure how we're gonna get the system sold, but in the meantime, they're not terrible for me to look at. Every one of these is a work of art as far as I'm concerned. So no regrets. All right, let me jump over here to camera 2 here real quick. Again, a super shout out and a thank you to our friend Buster. And I need to go back to checking the phone again, but I want to start Cinebench up. So let's run hardware info. Let's get that started. The system is dead quiet. It's making no sound at all. And let's save our results from Crystal Bismarck, and I can close it. Save it as a JPEG on the desktop. 6400 on the writes, 1600 on the reads. You know, for a budget NVMe drive that's Gen 4, it's certainly not the fastest Gen 4, but it's also one of the cheapest Gen 4s that runs at these speeds. So I'm liking it so far, but I don't have too much experience with it, but we're off to a good start. Move that over here. Let's get Cinebench fired up. Remember, this is an Ultra 5. It's not an Ultra 7. It's not an Ultra 9. We're 32 gigs of RAM, not 64, not 96. Let's hit start. Let's bring this window up over me, and then it's actually probably going to be behind me. Then I'll move my camera. But let's get this extended and expanded. We'll go to CPU temperatures. And then I'm going to take my camera 1 and move it over here. That way we should be able to see everything. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on those temps. But it does look like, well, first of all, I still don't hear it. 74 degrees Celsius after nearly a minute. Usually the first 2 minutes of either of these two Cinebench tests are the worst as far as heat generation. And so adding a second fan to that is not going to be beneficial. You might get a lower number by a couple of degrees, but it won't make any difference in performance, reliability. It's perfectly fine. So we just keep that extra fan as a spare. Again, if this were an Ultra 7 or an Ultra 9, we might want that second fan on it. If Scythe would offer that with one fan, I would have bought it with one fan. But just because it comes with two fans doesn't mean you have to use two fans. So anyway, it's up to you. Move that out of the way. So we're at, yeah, nearly 2 minutes on this. 76 is as hot as it's gotten. So let me get that a little smaller here so I can look back at the chat. Also get back to the phone here and let's see if we've missed anything else. A PayPal contribution from our good friend Mark Gaines that joins us from Northern Ireland. Here's $50, he says, a little something for the channel. Thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate you very much. And there is a case I'm looking at buying for another build. And I'm on the fence about it. I do have a motherboard coming, as I mentioned, an 850 series for AMD, and a Ryzen 5 chip is already here. The problem is everything else is so much money. So I'm going to get your opinion on this case. Let me bring up Amazon and pull this up. And you guys can either say go for it, in which case I'll use today's money to buy this case, or tell me to hold out and wait for a better case. But what I'm looking for, or what I'm looking at, is a micro ATX case, not a full size, not a mini. It's right in the middle, micro ATX. And it's made by Corsair. And it's like a miniature fish tank in white with wood grain, which if I can find it, I think it's the 2500X, yeah, and it's pricey. This is not the one. This one? They have a couple different versions, so there is a version I pulled up here that is similar, but not quite right. 2500D, is that what it's called? It's white with wood grain in an aquarium style, but smaller than a full size. Let me just type it in my search here. Wood grain. There it is. 2500X. Okay. Here's where I need your feedback. After all, you guys are the sponsors, so I want to know what my sponsors want me to do. Let me jump over to my screen capture. We're going to leave this page here for a moment and jump over here. So, you know, looking at this, it looks like one of those big aquarium cases, but looks can be deceiving. It's pretty much as wide as a big aquarium case, but it's much shorter. That's not as tall. So in here would be the same size motherboard that's in the case we built today. And this really needs, because it's all glass, you really want a liquid cooler on it, even though a Ryzen 5 does not require a liquid cooler. We could buy a white air cooler, but I don't know. I mean, to get a case that's all glass like that. And the liquid coolers that I'm looking at are pretty pricey. So right now, I'm just doing this one piece at a time. And I'm thinking about something different that I haven't built before. This has your standard 2 USB type A's, 1 USB type C, power switch, reset switch. It's got an elegant design, much like today's. This is interesting in that they bring the power connector right to the motherboard so that you plug your power supply in to this add-on piece. And your SATA cable's also, I guess, attached to this piece here. That's part of the case. That's pretty darn clever. Oh, wait a minute. I take it back. That's not what they're doing. That's not what they're doing at all. This is a reverse connector motherboard is what this is. So this is for a board that has the connectors in the back. Maybe I'm confusing this with a different case I saw. Because I was looking at a case where the motherboard power connector attached to a header that was already pre-wired on the case. But you know what? Maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe I was looking at this the whole time. Now I'm doubting myself. Well, the board I'm ordering is not a reverse connector board, so that does not apply. So forget I said anything. All right. I'll have to go back if I see that other, if in fact it is a different case I was looking at, I'll have to show it to you. We already have some white RAM with RGB on it from Silicon Power. And we already have the CPU. We have a motherboard coming. I need a case. The power supply for this would be what I'm thinking is a Thermaltake that we've used prior. And they're pretty, everything's expensive right now. And no, the tariffs have not taken effect until Monday, so it's not a tariff issue. What's it called? Thermaltake white. It's fun typing one-handed. Power supply. Yeah. Not 1050, that's too big. I was looking at an 850. But 1000, you know what? That's a good price, 157, because the if I need to go modular, at least I think I should go modular on a case like this. I suppose I could get away with this one now. Now that I think about it, this white power supply, probably all the extra cables will be hidden in the second chamber. Maybe don't need this after all. That's much more affordable. Okay, so we could afford to get the case and this power supply right here, the W3. 700 watts, I think that's plenty. The one I was looking at is this 850. Oh, it's on sale. Well, this was 135 when I was looking at it yesterday. It says this is the lowest price in 30 days, so maybe I would still stick with this after all. 110, which is nearly twice the other one. But it's also higher. This is an 850 instead of a 700, and it's modular. All right, I'm looking for your feedback. What do you guys think of a build like this? Also, the motherboard will be a white Gigabyte. See if I can find it. It's not out yet. I'll just type in Gigabyte. It's a B850. Whoops, not a 950. It's an 850. And it's white. That's it right there. No, it's not micro ATX. That's it, $200. In fact, the board we're using today on the Intel side was also $200. It's got built-in Wi-Fi, just like today's board, but it's Wi-Fi 6E instead of 7. And this board will not be released for another couple of weeks, but we'll be one of the first to get them. So I'm thinking that motherboard in white with the white power supply, the white RGB RAM that we have from Silicon Power. Thinking that white case, that's sort of a shrunken edition of the full aquarium style case we built in prior. And then for storage, maybe use the other Silicon Power we've got. Even though this is a Gen 5, just keep it a Gen 4. Again, we're not building a Ryzen 7 or a Ryzen 9. This would be a Ryzen 5. And then we just have to figure out a white cooler for it. So with that, let me see what your thoughts are. And let me go back to our results over here on Cinebench. It looks like our highest temperature is, we've hit 82, which is still well below 85. We're doing really good here. And actually, 82 was only on the performance core number 11 down here. Nothing else ran as hot as number 11. And that's normal. You might get one core or two cores that run hotter. I'm not worried about that at all. And I've not heard this thing crank up at all. It sounds very quiet, even though I'm sure that fan is speeding up. One of the things I like about Scythe is just how well made and how quiet their fans are, as well as how easy their third-party coolers are to install. And they're not so big. The coolers aren't so big that they block. If we had RGB RAM, we wouldn't be sitting on top of it blocking it. And the price is reasonable. How many minutes do we have left here? Oh, just finished. Let's start the next test. Perfect timing. Let that run. And then we'll come back and watch what our maximum temp is after 10 minutes of the second test. And then that's our score, the 24,088, if you want something to compare it to. Again, it's not going to be that much different in performance from an Ultra 7 or Ultra 9. If you consider, if you take whatever that score is and put a dollar value on it, and how much the CPU is, which is already determined as $320 CPU, then do the same with the Ultra 7 and Ultra 9, and you'll find you were paying a lot more to get a little tiny bit more in back. This is a much better value proposition. If you're into value, that's all I'm saying. All right, now let me go over to the chat and see what you guys are saying, what your comments are on these cases. I need to scroll back a little bit to see what I've been missing. Mortant joins us and says hello. Hey, Mortant, welcome in. Elmo's Fine says, how are you today? I'm fantastic. I was really looking forward to getting this done. I knew it was going to look sharp. It has not disappointed, and the build is really easy. I'm due. Actually, the Z890 build, the ProArt build, that was really easy too, for as complicated as it was. Incredible. And Mara's using that system daily now, and she loves it. We'll see if that stays or changes over time. We'll let you know. Becca Cameron says 70 degrees Fahrenheit in Alabama. That sounds like a nice day. Bernard C. says hello. James Steinbrecher says, get that case, Carey. Well, we have a vote for the case. Mo Jake says, when are you going to be invited to Scrapyard Wars? I'll let you know if as far as I know, they don't know I exist. And I'm not quite sure I'm that interested in making garbage work, but you know, I'm not asking for an invitation, and I haven't declined any. So I'm open-minded. John Paul Bacon said, that sounds good. It would be a nice build, most likely. I think so, and unique, you know, and elegant in a way, even if it is all glass and all RGB. I really like the way the Leon Lee Air 011 came out. And this Corsair 2500X we built in is almost too heavy for me to lift. So getting something smaller, unfortunately, though, it doesn't really change much on the price. I mean, it's still going to be, you know, $1,000 one way or the other. Same as today. This was only a $90 case. That case is nearly twice the price. So I don't know, maybe it'd be closer to $1,100 depending on how we cool it. On the other hand, it looks like a $2,000 computer. Charlie Purdy said, go for it. It sounds nice. All right. Well, I guess I know where that money's going. That's good. It's all investment for the channel. Like I said, I reinvest in the channel. I like to get your thoughts. That's why I don't have the little Cybertruck PC. They have a little mini PC in the shape of a Cybertruck. Nobody liked it. I also was looking at a $1,300 computer case called the Shoe X or something. It looks like a basketball sneaker. Nobody likes it. Don't spend $1,300 on that case, Carey. Okay, I mean, if you guys don't like it, I'm doing it for you. I'm not doing it for me. I thought it was neat, but apparently I'm the only one who likes the Cybertruck mini PC and the sneaker case. Good to know. Glad I didn't waste my money. Because again, I'm not doing this for you. I mean, yes I am. I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for you. And if you guys aren't interested in it, you need to tell me. Because, you know, the Cybertruck mini PC starts at around $700 after tax and shipping. And that sneaker case starts at around $1,300 empty. You still have to buy all the $1,000 worth of parts to put in it. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't have anywhere to put it. But I think when that makes some interesting content, and you guys have made it clear, no. Okay, glad I asked. Saved me $2,000. Neg Lakay says hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. Doman 2000 said, in the end, it's just another case. It becomes the same routine now, I think. There's some variation. You've certainly seen me struggle with some of it. That's not quite as obvious to me. But yeah, I mean, really, you could say that for the last 20 years. Oh, Buster's saying goodnight. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for your contribution again, your support, your friendship, Buster. Have a good evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time. WikiSoul says, wow, those special cases are pricey. Yeah. Well, there's just more profit in them. The manufacturers don't have to be so cutthroat on pricing. If they have something unique and flashy, enthusiasts will pay through the nose, and they know it. Not that I'm opposed to corporations making a profit, but rest assured, there's a higher profit margin on products like that than on regular ordinary cases. There's almost no profit on a regular ordinary case. It's razor thin. Mark Gain says, I like the sound of it all. An all-white build, I think it's nice, especially for the case. I don't hear anyone opposed to it. Andy Kane's recommending a fan, cooler, Hyper 212 RGB. I just feel like with all the glass surrounding it, it's not like you're just going to see the top of the cooler like you do in this case. And even then, it's not RGB. You can't really see it through the smoke glass window. But I don't know yet. I really feel like that needs a liquid cooler. I do have a white NZXT cooler here, but it's really designed for a Ryzen 9. It's not that it won't work on something lesser. It's just way overkill for what we need from a performance standpoint. But it's exactly what we need from an aesthetic standpoint. And since it's already on the shelf in inventory, I could save a little money and just use it. I probably bought it when it was on sale and then just never got around to using it. It's brand new in the box. I don't even think the plastic shrink wrap on the box has been cut open. I think that's the only white cooler I have, regardless, all-in-one or fan. I don't know. I mean, it's food for thought. Certainly a Hyper 212 EVO will probably get the job done. It just won't look as good. That's my concern. Wild Soul said, that's a beautiful case, but the smaller cases make me nervous. Everything's tighter and I worry about airflow. Well, that's a big, small case. Did I hear myself? I mean, as far as mid-tower cases go, you're not going to have any fitment or airflow problems. It's like Thermaltake's Tower 100 is the biggest mini ITX case I've ever worked on. Very easy to work on it. A lot of mini ITX cases, I don't even want to work on them. They're so limited and tight and cramped and claustrophobic. But most micro ATX cases are fine. Most of them. And then when you go to a dual chamber micro ATX case, it's the biggest micro ATX case you'll ever see. So those concerns really wouldn't apply here. But also, the price reflects that, I think, as well. You get what you pay for. Bernie Clement says a full-size case is easier to work with. Well, Bernie, for me, we do have a full-size Corsair 2500D, is it? I can barely lift it. So sure, it's a pleasure to work in once you can get it lifted onto the table. And I don't really have, you know, a set of kids running around here. I can say, hey kids, come lift this up on the table for me for your old man. You know, I have to do it myself. And the older I get, the heavier the cases feel. So for me personally, you know, if this was 20 years ago, I wouldn't care. But today, starting to worry about my back. And I don't mind that the case is easy to work in, but I do care if I can't easily move the case around. And it's one thing, you know, to put the case on a board with wheels. Anybody can do that. It's another thing to lift it 3 feet off the ground and onto the desk so I can work on it. Likely the machines I build will be on this desk multiple times. You know, we'll have that black Apache helicopter build back up on this desk that I built years ago. That's going to take 2 people to lift that up and get it up here. Now, once it's up here, it's easy to work on it. But then getting it back down and moving it wherever it needs to go, or heaven forbid, somebody wants to put it in their car, I hope you have an SUV or a minivan because it's not going to fit in the trunk of a car. So, not on most of them anyway. These are all the downsides to getting too big of a case. At least from my perspective. Nigel says, hello from Australia, where it's 8:25 in the morning on Monday. Just found your channel and I love it. Well, welcome in, Nigel. Cheers. Thanks for joining us. Do you know a guy named Paul Gray? He lives in Australia. What are the odds? Marco says, ciao. Marco joins us from Italy. Good to see you, Marco. Mark Leibowitz runs a computer repair shop in the Chicago area. He joins us here in the chat, says hello. Sorry, I'm just catching up on a lot of old messages here. John Paul Bacon said he'd love to have a case that's shaped after the SR-71 Blackbird. I think a lot of people would. I mean, Elon named his kid after that plane. His youngest, his newest born. John Paul Bacon said, white isn't really my personal choice for me, but for the channel, I think white would be good. Yeah. Yeah, we're just trying to come up with something a little different. Again, I don't need any of these. Once they're built, they'll sit off to the side. That doesn't mean they're bad or anything's wrong with them. I've got great machines right now, and there's only so many machines one person can use at a time. What a problem I have, right? But that's the reality of building as many as I build. But I also want you guys to see, you know, when you're investing in the channel, where's your money going? Is it going to some new car? No. Is it going to some addition to the house? No. It gets poured back into the channel. So if you can think of other ways that I can pour it back into the channel, let me know. But for me, it's just about the content. It's not like there's many things to talk about as far as any new routers go. I feel like I've covered networking, and networking's kind of stalled, and it will stay stalled for the next 2 years. I don't know. I'm open to your ideas and suggestions for what would appeal to the common computer owner. David Dix at Rock City PC says he remembers the old Cosmos 2 build. That was a big case. Yeah, the Cosmos 2 we did in 2013. And that was a local gentleman that wasn't shipped. And while I could lift that case empty onto the counter, I could not lift it once it was filled with parts. The video card, the CPU, not CPU, the motherboard, back to the CPU again. Power supply. I mean, these things had a lot of weight. The liquid cooler. So the person that owned it grabbed one handle and I grabbed the other handle, and we not only picked it up off the counter, because that's 3 feet off the ground, but then carried it together out to the back of his truck where he strapped it in. Because again, it wouldn't fit in a trunk. You'd have to have a very large SUV or minivan, or in his case, a pickup truck. And you wouldn't want it in the back of the pickup truck without locking it in, because it'll just, every time you accelerate, it'll slide to the back, and every time you brake, it'll slam up against the back of the cab. It'll probably dent the cab and scratch up the case in the bed of the truck. So we had straps, and we strapped it down good and tight, because he was about 45 minutes away that he was going to drive on Phoenix roads with potholes and acceleration and heavy braking and acceleration with traffic around you. So yeah, that was cautiously moved, but would have cost a fortune if we had to ship that. Easy case to work on. Can you use a crane to lift the heavy cases? I'd have to have room to put a crane. There are things like engine lifts that you can use, right? But we don't have any room for it.
No, you have more emails.
More emails, right on. Thank you. Let's check the email. Checking the emails. Our friend Charlie Purdy in the chat room sends an Amazon gift card. Very generous Amazon gift card. Well, thank you so much, Charlie. Once again, we have members of this community that without whom, and Charlie's one of them, Buster's one, Oystein, Frankie B, Paul Gray, Mark Gaines. Without these folks, I'm telling you, you don't know what you don't know. You would not know there's content that wouldn't be here without them. And I'm not going to specifically tell you, because that would be darn near impossible. But without that generosity and that support, and without traditional sponsors where we're hammering on you to buy something, or we're promoting some company's product where you have to read a script and get the company to approve our video before we can show it to you, which feels disingenuous. It feels like a commercial, and it's marketing. Reviews are not marketing. I guess if it's a good review. But in order for us to maintain that independence, it's your support that makes this possible. We can't thank you enough for being members, super chats, PayPal contributions, Amazon gift cards, and especially to those super members like Charlie Purdy and Buster and Frankie B and Oystein and Paul Gray, Mark Gaines, that are extraordinarily generous, which benefits this entire community. And for that reason alone, I highlight them away from everybody else, because they're like super members. And I want everybody to know that. This all has to come from somewhere. And, if we increase our membership, that certainly means the projects can get much more complex, expensive. There's a reason why these are Ultra 5s and Ryzen 5s. There's a couple reasons. One, we've already done the Ultra 9 and the Ultra 7. We've already done the Ryzen 9 and the Ryzen 7. What we haven't done much of are the 5 series, and let's face it, the 5 series is probably the mid-range price that most people are going to be actually buying. That doesn't necessarily mean that video is going to get more views. Ferrari car reviews often get more reviews, or views rather, than an affordable mid-range car that is likely more more likely something you would actually buy and could afford. But those reviews of, say, a Nissan Altima don't compare to the latest Ferrari or McLaren. So there's entertainment, I get it, but there's also something that can help inform you to make the right decision, especially for something that costs a lot of money. So we're talking about a computer that certainly doesn't cost a lot of money compared to a car, usually. But it's still, for most of us, a major expense and not something we can afford to do very often. Most of us, from my experience talking with customers, they want to get it right the first time. They don't want to have to go back and correct it. Sometimes you'll see me have to make corrections where I've got a part it won't fit. And I have to say, okay, we have to stop the build video until I get a different part. I do that and I share that with you so you're aware. There are certain times where you need to pay attention to those details, or you might be adding to the expense and time that you're going to have to put into getting your build done. You might have been thinking, okay, I got my final part. I can't wait to get this up and running. And then end up, having to send something back because it doesn't fit, it's the wrong part. And that happens to me too. And I don't usually do much research. In my opinion, things should just be a standard and we should all the manufacturers should accommodate the standard. Sometimes they don't, and we find out the hard way. And the benefit is that we all learn from that together as it happens live and unscripted. And we move on. We take that knowledge, we move on. Becca Cameron says, I love the educational aspect of Carey's content. Well, thank you, Mecca Cameron, but it's not just about education, it's about experience. I want you to experience what I'm doing as though you were doing it, as though you were in the room with me. That's as close as I can give you the experience. Because we can be book smart all day. We can do the math. But can we, because you know how to do one kind of a math problem, can you do all math problems? Right? You have the theory, but then do you have the experience? So what I'm trying to do here different. It's still educational, but I'm trying to blend the education with the experience, and not just a positive experience. I want you to see my frustrations. I want you to see my mistakes. That is a critical part of experience that often isn't covered in a manual or a typical educational book or media. They typically don't show you the common errors people make. They only show you the right way, and any other way is wrong. But there are common misconceptions that might make you feel, at least I can only speak for myself, makes me feel like, wow, I must really be dumb, that I didn't get that. You start talking to other people and they say, no, I thought that too. And you're, oh, it wasn't just me. So I want to show you, if a guy's been doing this for 34 years and I make mistakes and I order the wrong parts, it's not a big deal. It doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing. It doesn't mean anything other than I'm a human being and I'm eager to learn and grow. If I don't make mistakes, I'm not learning anything. And if I'm not learning anything, I'm not growing. And if I'm not growing, what's the point of being alive? That's how my brain works. I need to experience success, but if success comes too easily, it'll be boring and I will lose all interest. I won't get the fulfillment. Somewhere there's got to be a balance. If I have more failures than successes, I might be in the wrong line of work. But I've got to tell you, we got a neighbor over here who randomly throughout the day, nearly every day, plays a trombone in the backyard. It is the most annoying thing you've ever heard. But this isn't something you pick up a trombone and play it and go, look, I can belong to the symphonic orchestra. No, you can't. You need to play all the time in order to get better. And even though that person sounds terrible today, if they keep doing what they're doing, they're only going to get better. I mean, if they don't, maybe they should pick another instrument. But statistically, the more you keep repeating and practicing, the better you're going to get. Too many people think, I can do what Carey does, never having done it before, and be just as successful and not make the mistakes he made. Well, I hope you can. I hope you can, and I also hope you can't. Because if it's that easy for you, maybe you're in the wrong line of work. Oversimplifying playing an instrument is a great example. Oversimplifying how to drive a car. Oh, I could race a car in the NASCAR. No, you probably couldn't. I don't think you understand. But maybe I'm wrong. The fact is, for any of us to become good at something, unless we have a natural born talent, which some of us do, we all do, just depends on whether or not you can find it or make money at it, is not indicative of your intelligence, right? It may be more indicative of your connection, your groove, your rhythm. That's nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with personality. It's just some have a more natural inclination to things. I have a natural inclination for logic. That's just the way I am. So if it comes to like taking a class on the English language, it makes no sense to me. I can't find logic in the English language. No matter how much I go to class and how much they test me, my scores don't get any better. I just can't wrap my mind around finding a system of logic in it. So I do better at math. We all have strengths and weaknesses, but we also shouldn't set ourselves up for failure. I'm not here trying to make this look so easy that you won't make any mistakes. What I am doing is saying no matter how long you do this, you'll still make mistakes. That's still good. That's still normal. And don't beat yourself up over it. It's no big deal. That's what learning feels like. If all you're doing is reading and you're not actually doing anything, it's just theorizing and research. Research and theory is, anybody could do that. Honestly, I could sit in a chair and use my imagination all day to come up with all kinds of crazy, wacky ideas. Well, this is possible. Not likely, but it's possible. Okay, what does that accomplish at the end of the day? So I'm also about getting something done. And if there's no obstacles in my path and it's easy to get done, why bother doing it? You know what I mean? So I like the challenges that I face. And will some people say, wow, that must be embarrassing? It isn't. It's not embarrassing to be a human being. If I was a machine making mistakes, that would be embarrassing. But maybe I am a machine and this is all just AI. Who knows? So again, all I'm trying to do here is extend the experience to you without you being here. And by having you here live and in the chat room and interacting with me and watching this happen in real time without edits, without a script, it's like we're hanging out together and you've joined me. And at this point with technology, that's about as close as I can get it. Maybe someday we'll have a hologram. We can all be virtually in the same room and we can build a virtual computer and each one of you can virtually touch the virtual parts. But by then we'll probably be building holograms and be back to square one again. I need a hologram simulator to simulate how to build a hologram simulator. And can I print a 3D printer with my 3D printer? Can I deliver a drone via drone? These are the things that keep me up at night. That guy must never sleep. What were our final numbers on this bad boy? I forgot. Let me go over here and see. Maximum temp achieved with one fan, 82. That is awesome in this thing. You don't even know it's on. It's that quiet. So Mugen 6 continues to be a great cooling option if you're looking for an air cooler. Much cheaper than Noctua, more expensive than Thermalright, but also I think better built, better quality, better looks. That's my opinion. I can only tell you from what I've seen online with Thermalright. I've never actually used one. But looking at the size of the radiator and the heatsink, the Mugen's much bigger. And clearly that's going to make a big difference in cooling. With regards to fan noise, I don't know until I get a Thermalright fan, but I do know from past experience Mugen makes a good fan. I don't think I've ever replaced a Mugen fan, ever. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, how many Mugens have I installed? You see how many extra tubes of thermal compound do I have left over? By the way, the guy that likes to buy older systems from me, I asked him if he wanted some thermal compound, and I filled a good third of a shopping bag with these Mugen 5. Oh, I've got these are the ones I kept. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And basically what I'm trying to tell you is, if you don't believe me, I've built a lot of, every one of these has a fan. All right, and this is just a fraction of how many I've installed. Never had to replace a fan on a Mugen. Not yet. Could I say the same for Thermalright at half the price? It's not like half of, let's say a Mugen's 55 bucks and the equivalent Thermalright is 30 bucks. I don't think it's worth the savings to find out. It's not enough meat on the bone there to make that worth it. But maybe we'll try it for the sake of trying it. In the meantime, Mugen 6 is a big win. Even if you choose to just put one fan on it, it's okay. You have permission. It'll be okay. And if you're wrong, then throw the other fan on if it's needed. If it's not needed, why put it on? That's all I'm saying. All right, let's go back to my utilities flash drive and let's copy over. You know, I like to put VLC on my builds. So let's drag that over. And I like to put on Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer. And I have to do the Windows 11 networking fixes to get this on the network to see the shares, which I've got a video that covers that. Other than that, as far as PC testing goes, I like to have CPU-Z on here just to look at the BIOS version and whatnot. Copy that over. I don't think I need anything else. If I look at the device manager, as we looked at it Friday, it should be all happy in there. Yeah, everything looks good. And if I look at my system properties, I should see that, oh, I'm on the Pacific time zone. Let's change that to Arizona time. That's better. We have an error. Something wants our attention in the Windows security, so we'll turn that on. I want to make sure that's a green check down there. And we'll run Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer here on Windows 11. Just double click. This mouse is terrible. There it goes. Yes. Fly. We sell this for $7. It's a utility I made, so all the machines I build and optimize and upgrade and repair all go out of my office the same way. This is all stuff I used to do by hand. This does it much faster and more consistently. Sometimes I might forget after a reboot that I didn't set a setting. It's not the end of the world. I like consistency. It's just part of who I am. And I asked my friends over at D7X Tech, I asked Nick if he would code something like that for me. And he did, and then you guys saw it and said, hey, would you sell that? Okay, that's how I built it. So now we're thinking about doing one. Well, we're not thinking about it. We're working on a version for Windows 11 specifically. But Microsoft keeps making all these big changes to Windows 11. And I'm glad we haven't done anything yet, because we'd have to redo it twice now. They've made changes that would require a redo. It's discouraging to spend time developing something and then have, you know, to go from 23H2 to 24H2. And now we have this Windows 11 fix we have to put in that we never needed before, which means updating the tool again. So anyway, let's throw VLC on here. You see how fast this is? Just the fact that it's an Ultra 5 you shouldn't turn your nose up at it. It's quick. Find me in Hawaii. It says, I had fun hanging out with all of you. You're great. Have a great rest of your day, evening. Until next time, take care. Right on. Thank you, Ken. You guys, you take care as well, my friend. And let me turn camera 1 off for a second because I can't see. There we go. Close that out. Click continue. And again, just as a reminder, I went to SCD Keys last night, and I bought a Windows 10 Pro license key, but this is Windows 11 Pro. And Windows 11 Pro accepts a Windows 10 Pro license key for now. Until Microsoft ends the free upgrade, you'll see here, there's our Ultra 5 processor, the 245K, currently at 4.2 gig, our 32 gigs of RAM. And if I type in the word activation here, comes up with these suggestions, activation settings, says we are activated. That will stay activated for life of the motherboard. Just so you know, this is not a license you can move around to other computers. But for $15 a license, who cares? Just buy a new license. If you can afford a new computer, you can afford the $15. That's all I'm saying. It's not normally $15. I think it's $22, but you get 30% off with the coupon code CAREY. And the links for that are in the video notes below today's video. Along with the parts for everything we bought is from Amazon. And we used your Amazon gift cards, your membership money to pay for everything today. All right, now let me go back to camera 1. Let me go full screen on this. And just give you an invitation here if you have any questions. This is the Q&A part of our video because we're just at about the 2 hour, just over the 2 hour mark, and we'll wrap it up for today. So if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please put them in the live chat right now. If you're watching the video after it's aired live, today is February 2nd, 2025. It is 3:15 p.m. Phoenix time. That is currently 5:15 on the East Coast and 2:15 on the West Coast in America. So if it's past that time or date, you're watching a previously live video. That's how you can tell. I do wish YouTube would do something to alert people, but you'll know because there'll be a comment section when the video is no longer live. And feel free to leave your comment if you have suggestions. You know, you missed out on the live chat to any of the questions I was asking or questions that you have. We do also have our board. So if you're looking for personal help with something, like if it's not a question specifically about today's build, if you have an issue that you're trying to resolve, you are all welcome, members or not, to join us on our forum or board, message board. And the way you get there, if I pull up my screen capture, is you're going to go to right up here, we'll type in CareyHolzman.boards.net. We have a link for this in the video notes. And then I'm going to hit enter. And this is what it looks like. You're free to register, and registration is free. Under general discussion, you'll see other viewers that have joined in to discuss, you know, helping them solve issues or helping them make a decision on a part or talking about, I don't know, what's up around their mind, birthdays. And we'd love for you to join us. We have no intention on monetizing this. You'll see there's some ads in it. We don't have any control over that because we're also getting the boards for free, and that's what's paying for them. These aren't from us. If you want to register, which you do have to do to post, that helps keep the spammers away. Registration is completely free, and we don't require really any personal information from you other than what's required to log in. And that's it. CareyHolzman.boards.net, not .com, .net. All right. And again, link is in the video description below this video, and that's always available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Join us at your convenience. Okay, let me go back to the chat room and see if there's anything for me to address. Mugen, M-U-G-E-N, is that how to spell? Yes. Yep. Javier says, Carey, I've been on YouTube for years. I started following him since 2018. That was about 10 years after I started here on YouTube. My first video was back in January of 2008, but that was right after Google acquired YouTube. There was barely anybody here. It was an echo. Hello, hello. Things have changed a lot since then. Where can we find Uncle Carey's Windows 10 tool? The default place to look anytime I show anything on camera is on what's called the video notes below the video. So the video has a little description under it, and it'll say more. Click on more, and you should see links to everything. If we have left it out, let us know, but it should be in there. On every video I make, by the way. Mecha Cameron said he's got to head out. Great stream. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Mecha Cameron. Good to see you, my friend. Let's see. Windows 10 support ends in October. October 14th of 2025 is the end of life, but Windows 10 will continue to work without updates. It just gets precariously dangerous, especially as you head into 2026. Microsoft is supposed to offer extended support for Windows 10 for $30 per machine per machine. But they haven't explained how they're going to do that yet. But it's not like Windows 10 is going to stop working any more than Windows 3.1 hasn't stopped working either. But good luck finding anything that'll work with, software printers, or even getting it on the internet, or getting a browser to display a web page correctly. It starts to fade out until it becomes unusable, other than to unplug it from the internet. So for that, Windows 10 will also have the same fate as Windows XP, Windows 98. They just they get to a point where it'd be ridiculous to use it. Windows 10 is already 10 years old. It's close to 10 years old. So it's been around a really long time. And the technology has advanced a lot in the last 10 years. I don't know if you've been paying attention. The very first mini PC I worked on was the Intel NUC in 2013, April of 2013. So it hasn't quite been 12 years. And prior to that, we never had a mini PC. Like what we defined as a mini PC was like mini ITX. And look at how far they've come. And look at how much further they're going to go. With the advancement of AI and everything else, Windows 10 will become long in the tooth, not only in its ability to keep up, but also its security holes that will leave you vulnerable over time. Not overnight, but over time. So you're okay. I think you should upgrade to Windows 11 before Windows 10 expires, unless you plan on paying for the extended support. That $30 only gets you 1 year of support. That'll take you to October of 2026. And Microsoft has not explained how you're going to do that yet, but they said they will as we get closer to October. So when I know, I'll let you know. In the meantime, you could just simply upgrade to Windows 11. If you've got a computer that's not Windows 11 compatible, that computer in October will likely be no less than 10 years old, which is a very long time to keep a computer. When I tell you that this is a 10-year build, that's unheard of. Just because you can use a computer for 10 years doesn't mean you should. You might also be able to eat your shirt and be healthy, but I wouldn't recommend eating your shirt. But you could if you wanted to. It's probably not a smart idea. Nobody said everything you did had to be a smart idea. Windows 11 computers are so cheap right now, I don't know why anybody's holding on to a 10-year-old computer. If I go on Amazon right now, I can buy an entire computer for less than Microsoft wants to charge for Windows 11. Windows 11 from Microsoft is $199 for the professional version. But look, right now live, let's go to Amazon. Let me show you something. Let's just look on Amazon right quick. This is so ridiculously cheap, it's almost become a child's toy. It's so disposably cheap. We're talking under $200 for a brand new computer, motherboard, CPU, cooler, storage, operating system, RAM and power supply with a case and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Are you crazy to think that's expensive? So let's look at mini PC. They should all be Windows 11. And this one's $199. This is just random, right? Camrui GK3 Plus N95 that is Windows 11 compatible. It's a 12th gen, 512 gigs of storage, 16 gigs of RAM. If you've got a computer that's more than 10 years old, this is faster than that computer. It's a fraction of the size. And with a $50 off coupon, that's $150 with free shipping and free 30-day returns. If you don't like it for any reason, send it back to Amazon at no cost. For no reason. You do not have to give a reason. Full refund. $150. And I bet if we look, we can find one cheaper. Here's a B-Link. I'm looking at name brands that I'm familiar with. B-Link, $159. Sale ends in 5.5 hours. This is an N100, slightly up from an N95. 16 gigs of RAM, 500 gigs of storage. It matches in that. It's got Wi-Fi 6 in it, however. And I'm barely scratching the surface. Here's an N150 for $138 plus a $15 coupon. That's $125. That is crazy cheap. Windows 11 Pro. Windows, you know what? Let's do Windows Home. Windows 11. Home, Microsoft. Buy. Okay, Microsoft.com. Well, that's the Surface Pro. I want the software, not the hardware. Microsoft Office Store. That's not Microsoft. Microsoft Softwares. Yeah, that's not Microsoft. This is. See the logo here. Okay, that's what we're looking for. Buy and download Windows 11 Home. Okay, if we just want Windows 11 Home, which by the way is already installed on these mini PCs, that is $139 for the operating system. That is the manufacturer suggested retail price, and they're going to give it to you on a USB flash drive. You can't even reuse that USB flash drive. You can't even update this. It's a proprietary format, BIOS or firmware on that USB flash drive that makes it completely unupdatable. Versus you could make a Windows 11 Home USB yourself for free, and you could update it indefinitely. And you could buy the license key from SCD Keys. You could buy a Windows 10 Home license key for like $12 or something. You could buy that key 13 times before you'd even get close to the cost of what Microsoft wants for this. And you can get the whole darn PC. Again, we'll go back to Amazon. Mini PC. And I'm not searching for anything that's specific. These are sponsored ads. See, it says sponsored. They're throwing it right in our face. 150 bucks. Keep scrolling. 50 bucks. Oh, that's the same one. 5% off, 159. So that's going to be about $7.50 off. Scroll down. What else we got? The B-Link. It's a name brand. There's probably a good minis for them in here. Here's a Ryzen 7. Ryzen 7 for 250 bucks. Ryzen 7. This is not an N100. This isn't Celeron. This isn't Ryzen 5. Ryzen 7. Do I sound excited? But wait, there's more. You can cut through a can. No, I don't know. All I'm saying is, like this BMax N4000, I'm not even sure that's Windows 11 compatible. That, I would not buy that. But it's $95 after a $20 coupon. $95. It's the case, the motherboard, the CPU, the cooler, the RAM, the storage, the operating system, the Bluetooth, the Wi-Fi, the power adapter. Why would you hold on to a computer that's 10 years old? Why would you do that to yourself? They've never sold this much for this little in my entire life as far as computers go. And the only person you're punishing is you if you refuse to upgrade your computer. At least if it's, you know, not Windows 11 compatible, because you'll spend more making it Windows 11 compatible than replacing it. Just saying. You couldn't even buy the CPU for this much money. And at the end of the day, those systems will probably be quieter, use less power, cost less money to run, and be far faster and more responsive than any Windows 10 computer you're using today that's not Windows 11 compatible. Statistically speaking, this will be an upgrade for you for that little tiny money, for that little tiny box. And if you think because it's so tiny it's not capable, you've never experienced one before. I mean, if you've got money to buy more RAM, you could buy the whole computer for what the... If I wanted to put 64 gigs of RAM or another 32 gigs of RAM in this, I could buy the whole computer for what that costs. So if you want it more upgradable, what you want is to spend more money. That's fine. That's fine. You buy this box, you shouldn't have to upgrade it. And if you do, just buy another one for $200 in a few years. Then you get a brand new machine. You get a brand new warranty. You get a faster chip. You get probably better cooling and AI and all this other NPU. All that starts trickling down. Or you keep the mini PC for however long they last. I would estimate 6 to 8 years, 4 to 8 years, depending, if it's the cheapest of them, then the lowest amount of time, 4 years. And if it's more mid-range or high-end, then closer to the higher end of 6 to 8 years. You figure you can get a year out of a computer for every $100 you spend. So those mini PCs are doubling that at a minimum. For $200, that's easily going to last 4 years. It just might start feeling a little sluggish after 4 years. So food for thought. I don't think Windows 10 ending is anything other than doing you a favor for what you probably already should have done years ago. If your computer's that old that you can't put Windows 11 on. Mark Leibowitz, who runs a computer repair shop there in the Chicago area, says he's got customers who want to hold on to Windows 10 because they're afraid of change. Price has nothing to do with it. It's an education issue for me to deal with. Well, it's not so much an education issue as it is an attitude problem. When you have a customer who's resistant to move up, here's the thing. The technology is going to, and Mark already knows this, but for the rest of you, the technology and society move on. They are not coming back for you. If you don't keep up, it's a lot harder to catch up later. It's not an option. Your option is get rid of computers and don't buy them. If you don't like the change, get out of, if you don't like the heat, get out of the kitchen, kind of an expression. Whereas it's not a punishment, it's an enhancement. It makes your business more productive and more secure. So if you have customers that are running a business that are resistant to change, they likely aren't going to be in business very long with that attitude. It's like, take your medicine or don't. If you want to get sick and die, then take your chances. That's their choice. Nobody's forcing them to do anything. If you want to understand how critical change can be and how expensive it can be on a more regular basis, go buy Apple products. Because Apple won't even give you the option. They just shut it down. And then they charge a lot of money to replace it. And most people who buy Apple products want the latest and greatest. It's kind of a lifestyle choice for a lot of people, not for everyone. And when you're used to that and you come over to the PC world and see how much freedom and how long you can go without requiring that change and without that expense, the attitude changes. So we all have customers like that in this business. And at the end of the day, they're welcome to do whatever they want. I advise them and I give them the reasons to think about and let them make up their mind. It's their business and it's their money. And they should have their expectations set accordingly. And the first time they get hit with ransomware and their whole business is shut down and they have legal issues regarding the liabilities to their customers and releasing a notification, hey, we got ransomware and your information was exposed, whatever their business is, if they have client information, that is required by law to send those notices out within a certain period of time to notify the banks and the credit companies. It's embarrassing. And the amount of money that they'll spend in attorneys and in technicians to get their system back up and running is likely into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Seriously, just to send that letter out, a legal letter of notification, you're probably looking at around $30,000 from an attorney. Because now the attorney's going to take on legal responsibility if that letter isn't phrased right, or doesn't go out in time. There's a lot of liability involved here. So when it's an end user sitting at home, I don't care. But when it's a business expense. And as far as business expenses go, it's way cheaper than rent. It's way cheaper than labor for your, and for all your employees. This is a tiny little investment, and it's for your employees to learn. The business owner doesn't have to do anything. If the business owner doesn't like change, they can just hire somebody else to do it. And if the home user doesn't like change, who cares? Like, so you lose your stuff, what do I care? I know it sounds cold, but it's only affecting you. It's not affecting your employees. It's not affecting your customers. There's no one you need to notify. There's no legal liability. Do whatever you want. Lou Greenia has an Ace Magic TK11 mini PC. He says it's been awesome. Mark Leibowitz said he's shopping for a mini PC for a business client. Or no, he says just a client. The Ace Magic with the Ryzen 7 looks like a mighty good value. Yeah, $250. We just showed minis for him. Had that 12th gen, was it the 1240p? Is that really testing my RAM? Testing my memory. Was that a 1250p? Minis Forum 1250p, I think is what it was called. UN 1250. Okay, think about this for a minute. See, Mark, he gets it. Pull it up on the screen here so you can see it. This is crazy value. So this is an i7, Core i7 12650H. This is a 10-core 16-thread processor with 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM already on it, with a terabyte of storage, NVMe storage on it. Supports up to 3 displays at the same time, with Wi-Fi, with Bluetooth. Wi-Fi 6E, by the way, $399. But wait, what if that's too much power and too much money? The UN 1250 with a terabyte of storage is $299 with 16 gigs of RAM, but with 500 gigs of storage, it's $20 cheaper. This is a 12th generation i5 12-core 16-thread CPU, Gen 4 NVMe, with a Type-C USB port in the back of it here. It's the front. Here's the back. There's your Type-C right there. Oops, right above the HDMI port. And there's a display port, and you can use this Type-C as a display port or HDMI output for a total of 3 monitors, all hooked up at the same time. This is no slouch. This is likely faster than any computer you built within the last 6 years. Again, you're getting the case, the motherboard, power supply, the RAM, the storage, the operating system, the heatsink, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth. You plug a monitor, a keyboard, and mouse in, you're good to go. $279.99 for a mid-range computer. This used to be under 300 was budget. Now budget is mid-range. Are you kidding me? That's an incredible value. I don't care who you are, it's a great value. It's small, it's quiet, and yeah, it's not going to be that upgradable, but I mean, you can always upgrade the storage. I wouldn't. If you need more storage, just get a USB drive and be done with it. Or get a NAS. One drive for my NAS costs more than this whole computer. Like if I wanted a 24 terabyte Seagate Iron Wolf. How much is that? Just one. By the way, I need 4 of them. They're about $500 a pop. That's $2,000 plus the cost of the NAS. So storage costs more than the computer does. I want you to think about that if you're a hoarder. If you're somebody who's going to save everything, that's going to cost you way more than the computer you're using. So, food for thought. All right, let's see. Back over to the chat room. Honestly, I don't have a preference. Any of those systems I've shown you were fine for the price. You'd be hard-pressed to find better values. And if you do, please let us know. Don't keep that to yourself. Patrick said, I've considered a Mini to replace my Windows 10 gaming laptop, but might have to get a different desk to support the monitor for the Mini. Only game I'd probably play on it is Second Line. Yeah. A Mini might do you just fine. There are budget laptops. You know, Ace Magic has the AX16. Let me jump over here again. Kind of curious what the prices are now. Oh, there's a lot of AX16s. Okay, 15.6-inch laptop with 20 gigs of RAM. Well, that's junk. I don't want that. Never mind. Let's keep looking. Okay, here's a 16-inch laptop, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 storage, 12th gen, quad-core processor, only Bluetooth 5, is a little older. 419, I think we could do better than that. 399 for this one with an N95 processor. I think we can do better. We should be able to get them under $400. Stay away from anything that has this eMMC. That's a very small, slow storage. It'll slow your whole computer down. I won't buy anything that has eMMC in it. That's netbook. Remember netbooks back in the day? That's partly why they were so slow. Well, maybe they don't make that anymore. It used to be... You know what? Let's just look under Ace Magic laptop. Because it was a great deal when it came out. I couldn't believe it. It was like 350 bucks. I don't know who these people are. $299. There's a whole computer. Screen, battery, keyboard, mouse, touch, not mouse, but touchpad, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, motherboard and cooler, power brick. Oh my gosh, 300 bucks. Now look, this isn't a rocket ship of a computer. It's an N95, and that might be a little low for Second Line. I don't know. Some games it'll be fine on. They had a 17.3-inch here from last year, but it doesn't look like it's available right now. Now this is a Ryzen 7. That's more for gaming. Okay, it's going to have a better gaming card, but it's also, you know, 440 bucks. So you're definitely still getting what you pay for there. But there's some really good deals. Now, obviously, if you want to stick with a name brand like Lenovo or Dell or HP, you're going to have better support if you need it. On the other hand, you're also going to pay more for it. What is this? This doesn't even tell us who makes it. Fun yet? Is that where you say, are you having fun yet? I don't know anything about this. This could just be the same as the Ace Magic with their own name on it. Does it come with a free bag of Funyuns? Yeah, I would be reluctant on this brand. However, with Amazon, you do have those 30-day returns. So just, you know, if you're going to experiment with it, beat the heck out of it for those first 3 weeks. And if it's fine, it'll probably be fine for years. On the other hand, if it exhibits any behaviors you don't like, don't even try and fix it. Just, it's not right for you. Don't waste your time. Put it back in the box, send it back for free, and get a full refund. Because this could be a great deal. I don't know. But you will be on your own for support with any of these, by the way. Just FYI. This one's even cheaper. $254 for a whole laptop. That sounds too good to be true, even with Windows 11 Pro on it. But again, with that 30-day return policy from Amazon, it may be worth exploring if in fact it's too good to be true. It may be a decision only you could decide. You might think it's terrible, or you might think it's great, depending on what you're expecting. Or you could still hold on to your old laptop and suffer through with all the security issues. You don't have any warranty on that either, by the way. So either way, let's see. Back over to the chat room. I'll stick around as long as you guys have questions. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. So let me see if there's any other things I missed here. Mark Leibowitz said he's got an client who's got an Ace Magic laptop with the Ryzen 7 5825U with 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage. I think it came with minor case damage, but it had to snap the connector back in place. It was fine. Yeah, I can't imagine. I've got an Ace Magic laptop over here. I don't personally use it. But if I need to get online or connect remotely, it's great. There's no good reason for me to not use it. It's super easy to work on it. It's very inexpensive. It's just, I'm a little bit of a prude. I've got some pretty high-end laptops. And why would I let those sit and go use a lower-end laptop? But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the lower-end laptop. So how many laptops does one person need? You know what I mean? But I also like being able to fall back on it as a backup and to see how it's lasting over time. Because if it breaks and I've barely been using it, I'll have some words to say about that. But I expect every time I turn it on, every 60 days I'll turn it on, get Windows updates, make sure everything's still okay, charge the battery up, put it back on the shelf. That's how we do long-term evaluations here. But ideally, we could live with it every day, use it every day. But there's only so many systems we can do that with. I live with my Galaxy Book 3 and 4 every day, my Samsung S24. No plans to upgrade to the S25. I think it's just a big nothing. Big zero burger. If I had an S22, upgrading to the S25 would make sense. But if you already have an S24, I don't see the point of it. But living with it, you know, relying on it, it's a much better way to test things, but it takes more time. And that's why I still hold on to this stuff. He does say that the owner of that Ace Magic is a kid who's the primary user, who's not even in high school yet. Well, some of the kids are the most demanding and the hardest on laptops, so that's actually that makes it more impressive. I don't know if that was your intent, but it's definitely more impressive if it's making a kid happy. They're the hardest ones to please usually. 55 Staying Dude said, I use my Minis Forum UM760 about 80% of the time, and my 14900K PC for video editing, and it's been a great Mini. I appreciate the feedback, and it sounds like you've got the right machine for the right job. You know, the UM760 will do your video editing. It'll just take a lot longer. Moonwolf Hunter saying good night. Right on, right on. Thanks for hanging out with us. Have a good night. How does the airflow temp work in the Minis? It's all been designed by the engineers, so long as you're not blocking any of the vents. Most of the Minis have very good cooling. There's a few out there that might be a bit loud. But, you know, that's what the YouTube channel reviews are for. You know, take a look at what YouTube reviewers are saying. A lot of them do demonstrate the level of volume and will give you some comparison. Like, they might personally find that a bit louder than normal or quieter than normal. But ultimately, what you hear in the acoustics of your room, it's really hard to say. But there's nothing you need to do. You just plug it in and use it. So long as you're not blocking the air vents, that's all there is. Yeah, you don't have to think about it. It's like wondering how they apply the paint on a car. Who cares? You don't have to worry about it. I know there's some of you out there that are going to say, well, some cars like Honda have paint that's peeling. That's not normal, and those people will be taken care of. So you don't have to worry about it. It's nothing for you to fix. It's nothing for you to upgrade or improve. It's already designed from the factory. Javier says, what's better, HP or Dell? It's really up to you to make that decision. Nobody can say what's better in anything. What's better for you may not be better for someone else. One person's trash is another person's treasure. And do your research and decide your budget and decide what's right for you. And you can tell us what you think is better after you've experienced it. But we don't know you, and we don't know what you think is better unless you tell us. David St. Louis says he just made the switch last month to Windows 11 Pro. Right on. It's not really that much different than Windows 10. It's not a big deal. Barry Klein joins us. I just saw you in there, Barry. I don't know how long you've been in there, but hello. Good to see you, my friend. And I think, am I caught up? Last call. Questions or comments, even if you've already posted something, you're going to have to repost it again for me to see it. I'll give you guys a couple minutes here, and then we will wrap it up. In the meantime, I want to say thank you again to Mara, our channel administrator, who does all of the administrative work behind the channel. That is hours of work, thumbnail design, all the video notes and descriptions are all done by her. All the social media marketing she does. If you want to reach out to us, again, our boards, our forums, which Mara also moderates, our email address if you want to reach out for pricing or private conversation, for private inquiry. Our email address is right here on the screen there. And Mara handles all of our incoming and outgoing mail. Usually you get a response within 24 hours, unless you spelled the email wrong. Be sure and double check your spelling if you want to reach out to us that way, or reach out to us in the forums, or reach out to us in the comments. We're available for you to talk to us. You don't want to talk to us, well, that's okay too. I'm just not quite sure what else to say. Our friends over at SCD Keys, again, a thank you and a shout out to them for giving you guys a 30% off coupon off what is already a heavily discounted price. We can't thank them enough that we have a safe place that you can go and buy Windows and Office keys that is legal, legit, and supported by the company that sells it. It's all backed up by me personally, so if you have any issues or problems that they can't resolve, you got to let them know if a mistake has been made. 9 times out of 10, they're going to resolve that. If there's some issue that they're not resolving, you reach out to us. We'll get it resolved one way or another. Even if it's a full refund, it's not a lot of money. It's $15 for a key. I'm very comfortable using these keys in my business. I've had them checked legally. Everything is on the up and up. So if you want to buy it and save money, have at it. If you don't, I'm not making a commission. So I'm just trying to give you guys something to think about. At the end of the day, it's not a high pressure sales tactic. I don't care. Unless something doesn't go as expected, then I want to make sure it gets right. But usually, vast majority of the time, everything goes smoothly. And in the rare occurrence where it doesn't, once they're made aware of it, they correct it. And only then, a sliver of what remains, just a fraction of a percentage, if something still doesn't go right, the buck stops with me. I want you to know that, because I don't know of any other content creator that does this. And if you like that peace of mind and that reassurance, you won't find it anywhere else that I'm aware of. All right, let me get rid of that email address. Let me get rid of that there. And shout out again, thank you to Oystein and Buster and Mark Gaines and Charlie Purdy. Thank you to our friend Jack Wilson. Paul, did I say Paul Gray? Who am I forgetting? All of our members, obviously, without whom we wouldn't even be here, quite frankly. Members have saved this channel from extinction, flat out. When YouTube sponsorships went down the toilet, and by that I mean the ads that play during the videos, went down in 90% in value. So for every dollar, I was making 10 cents. This channel would have been history, as many channels did go bye-bye. If it weren't for our members, the generosity of our viewers, we would not be here. So we can't thank you enough. We have the most amazing and supportive and kind community of this size on YouTube. I'm not aware of anything bigger that's more supportive and more kind. And we'd love to see it grow. And if you feel like you like to be around kind people, supportive people, please join us. We'd love to have you. If, on the other hand, you don't have time for that, well, it goes both ways. So we'd love to see the community grow with more like-minded, kind individuals for the most amazing community. And I challenge you to find a community friendlier and more welcoming than this anywhere on YouTube. Show it to me. There's no spammers, there's no bots, there's no bullying. And if you just come in and say hello and do nothing other than that, just say hello in our live chat, watch what happens. I guarantee you're going to feel welcome. You're going to feel like people are very friendly and that you are that you fit in here, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it all starts with you just coming into a live chat and saying hello. And you'll be amazed at what happens next. So if you find that appealing and you want to challenge what I'm saying, test it. See how that works for you. We'd love to have you. Thank you to Wild Soul with that $5 super chat that just now, and for all of your questions and interaction. I really appreciate all of that. That'll wrap it up for me for today. Every Monday for our members, we do members only videos. You'll notice if you look in the video list, you might see members only, and they have a smaller view number. That's because they're not as crazy. It's much more intimate and informal. We can talk about things I wouldn't talk about necessarily publicly to the world, but only to our members. Items we're working on, some exclusive repairs and diagnostics. Sometimes they may edit a piece out of a members only video and make a video out of it, but most of the time those members only videos remain only for members as a thank you for those folks supporting us and to give them their own time with me. It's not so competitive against all the other viewers. It's, you know, everybody's kind, don't get me wrong, but sometimes the chat is faster than I can keep up with. So the smaller view numbers on the members only isn't a bad thing. It's everybody can get more of my time and attention because there are not so many people competing for it. And we can talk about things more openly without worrying about, you know, some nefarious person trying to, I don't know, find something. You know what I'm saying? So every Monday, as always, at 1 p.m. Phoenix time, we do our members only videos. And if you become a member, then you'll be able to access those as well as the previous ones. And then, of course, the rest of the week, we make videos as time permits. The only real dedicated time slots we have are Mondays and Fridays. The Fridays are the big build videos. We have 2 more big builds, or builds anyway, coming up, with potentially the third one, where we talked about earlier with that mid-tower case. That'll be a couple of weeks from now. Just deciding on the case. It looks like everybody thinks that's a good one. I think I'll order it after the video, and we'll set it aside when it arrives and still have time to figure out what we'll do for a cooler. Without those contributions, we would not be able to afford to do that. I keep telling you this. I want you to know nobody's paying for this but the viewers. So you guys are our sponsors, and that enables how much content we can make and how often. So if you're wondered why maybe we don't have videos certain days of the week, it's likely because we don't have the funding to do them. Or sometimes there's just personal errands I have to run. But right now, Mondays are members only, and Fridays are open to the public, and any other day is a bonus day that we do as the opportunity permits us. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all. We'll see our members on Monday, and then everybody else. Hopefully we'll be back through the week. If not, definitely on Friday, always 1 o'clock Phoenix time, every Friday. You're welcome to join us then, member or not. And for the members, I'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, bye for now.